Good morning, everybody. I'm Jerry Greer, the Deputy Mayor, standing in for Mayor Will and our interim CE Ross for a wee while. So we'll carry on in the meeting this morning. We've got apologies. Well, apologies for Will and Councillor Nepiapitu, but they will be joining us in half an hour, and I think Kitty Galbraith as well. I haven't heard from Todd. Is there an apology? No. Okay. So can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Thank you. So we'll move on to a karakia. I'll ask Councillor Moynihan to karakia.
He's got one.
Tēnā koutou katoa. Lord, we ask your blessings on us today, who have been called to lead this community in which we work, live and play. We are not only leaders, but also servants, and it is our responsibility to serve the common good of all. Amen.
Thank you, Councillor. Right, we'll just crack on. The endorsement of the Lake Whātuma Partnership Accord. Oh, sorry. Yep. Declarations of conflict of interest. Are there any? I just make you all aware that I'm a trustee of the Aramona Environmental and Educational Charitable Trust, of which we're talking about an MOU later on this morning. So yeah, can I have a mover? You, Councillor Byrne, seconder. Councillor Cannon, thank you. Standing orders, I'll move that they are suspended. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Lawrence. Right, we moved on to
minutes. I've got to change.
Sorry?
Confirmation
of minutes, yes.
I've got an amendment in the voting for the liquor licensing. I'm recorded as voting no, and I was a yes.
Noted. No. Anyone else? Have a mover, please. The minutes have been. Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Seconded. Councillor Hannon. Thank you. Sorry, and we'll move on to the decision report. So I was jumping the gun a little bit there. Mrs. Cooper, this is the endorsement of the Lake Whātuma Partnership Accord.
Tēnā koutou katoa, morena councillors, morena colleagues. I'm here this morning to formally present to you the report for the Lake Whātuma Accord. This report seeks Council's acknowledgement and endorsement of the Lake Whātuma Accord, a non-statutory partnership agreement that provides a practical framework for the restoration and revitalisation of Lake Whātuma. The purpose of the accord is to bring council, mana whenua, and partner agencies together under a shared commitment to protect and enhance the lake's mauri while supporting long-term cultural, environmental, social and economic outcomes. In considering this item, key points for council include the accord's role in formalising partnership arrangements, clarifying governance and reporting expectations, aligning future work programs and resourcing, and confirming that any material funding or statutory decisions will still come back through normal council processes. So basically, you will see in there that there is, under the executive summary, it talks about a memorandum of understanding between Tamatea Pōkai Whenua. That is kind of true. They hold the administrative rights to that. They're working with Te Rongo o Whatumā, which is a group that oversees and manages that area. So that's just to make that clear, that is an administrative function. And just moving forward through the other, like previously we've presented in workshop as well as at a site visit. So just bringing your attention to that as well. And also looking at the principles of the Accord, which I think it's really, really important to just remind ourselves what that remind ourselves what that is. So part of that is upholding the Treaty of Waitangi principles and recognising mana whenua as kaitiaki. As I talked about before, the partnership and shared decision making, and a whole of a catchment approach, so it captures that as well. Council's commitments as well is something that I think is important to just overview. Participating in the Accord's governance arrangements, what that may look like, that's still got some development to do as well, so that's a lot more discussions to have. Aligning relevant council plans and programs. We've got the LTP coming up. That is important in our space for this as well. Contributing staff capacity within agreed budgets and supporting engagement with communities and landowners. We saw how well received that was when we did the site visit. So this is the recommendation that I bring to you today with this paper, is that council receives a report titled Adoption of the Lake Whatumā Partnership Accord, and we consider an endorsement. That council acknowledges and endorses council's commitment to the Lake Whatumā Accord. That council authorises the mayor and chief executive to sign the accord on behalf of council. And that council delegates to the chief executive and the authority to finalise minor drafting changes to the accord in consultation with the mayor. So I leave that with you today to consider. Thank you, everybody.
No questions? Councillor Byrne.
Yeah, through you. My question is, obviously, we've got the mayor absent at the moment because he is actually signing the accord. So my question is regarding the timing. I mean, option 2 is to say that we just want to leave it on the table, but we don't really have that option. So why is it coming to us today when the actual accord is being signed today?
Through you, Mr. Chair, you as a council table have the ability to make that decision without the mayor at the table. You have a quorum around the table. I think it's important to note that this is off the back of a visit that was conducted last week, where the accord was clearly outlined, and where the intent of the partnership was well traversed. Ultimately, it is a decision for you to make, obviously, but that's the reasoning for bringing it today.
I mean, honestly, yeah. So that, yeah, I mean, I understand the kaupapa and the you know, the reconnection and the revitalization of the lake is paramount. But yeah, I just think that, I mean, we haven't seen the accord in the workshop. We saw it was delivered to us in an email. So I'm just thinking, for the future, it'd be really good for us to, timing wise, to actually be able to discuss it around the table prior to us actually endorsing it while it's being signed. That's just my feedback to the process.
Well, thank you, councillor Byrne. It's probably worth noting that on the executive summary that the accord is a non-statutory agreement that records shared intent and establishes a cooperative framework. So, yeah, thank you. Noted.
Quite happy to move, Mr. Chair, but I have a slight change to number 4, to have a full stop after change intent or commitments, close bracket, full stop. I think if we are delegating to the Chief Executive the authority to finalise minor drafting changes to the accord, I don't think that needs a mayoral approval.
That's on 4.
So happy to move all 4 with that minor change to it.
It's delegates to the chief executive the authority to finalise minor drafting changes. Full stop.
No, after the close bracket.
Oh, close bracket, yep. Then delete the rest of the sentence.
Yes.
Yep. We got a seconder, please. Good. Thank you. Councillor Lawrence. So thank you, Cooper. You have actually read out all the recommendations, so I don't have to do it again. All in favour?
I would like to speak, please.
Yes. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Sorry, I did the same thing when I was in the chair seat. I'd just like to thank you and to thank Matua Roger and all the work that's been done at Lake Whatuma. It is an exciting place to be, and there are no real negatives to supporting this kaupapa. But I would like to talk of your statements that if this is something we're signing, whether it's statutory or not, the timing, probably getting calendars all in alignment is one of the reasons this has come to us so late. But next time it might be a statutory document and it might matter, and we might vote no next time. Not saying there's any likelihood of that. There was any likelihood of that today. We've all seen the accord. We all knew it before today, but next time it might not be so straightforward. So I would request that things come in the right order next time. But this whole accord and the partnerships that we're growing are awesome to see. Thank you. Thank you.
Councillor Lawrence, would you like to speak? I'd just like to add to Councillor Taylor that recognise the work of Roger Marker and his team, and this is a fantastic initiative for Lake Whatuma, and look forward to seeing progress as we move through it. So wonderful thing for Central Hawke's Bay. Thank you. All in favour? Sorry.
Can I say something? Yeah, I also want to just acknowledge the work that has led us to this point as well. It's been years of amazing advocacy in this space, and it's just so encouraging to see an amazing group of people that are willing to take it to the next level. I too question process only for future agreements, because I also think, how do other initiatives that are just as good as this actually get themselves into a position of having an accord with the council? The other thing I also do, maybe just for future, we've got an agreement that's been signed by 2 governors, but yet the other 2 organisations are executives or operations. So it kind of, I don't know, we just probably need to get our ducks in a line as to who are the signers. Are they executives? Are they CEOs, or are they governors? Because a mix of that is kind of a little bit different. And the other thing is that with the impending decisions around regional councils, how that then has an effect on things like this as well is something we probably need to be mindful of. So I think we probably need to have it in the diary that we certainly put it as part of a work program that we address even each triennium or with each change, because yeah, those signatures could easily change, and those people could easily change. Yeah, so but otherwise, yeah, really excited to see the work come to fruition. We'll start thereof, and how that will run with the Ngā Ara Te Rena work as well, because it's very much a big the story of Tamatea Central Hawke's Bay, and it's so wonderful to learn more. Yeah, so well done.
I might, through the chair, just in response to councillor Annand, the signing, was actually queried for, the other signatories, and they had a late change of councillors, actually signing on behalf as opposed to executive. So that was a late change.
Awesome.
So that was
So it's a
rectified.
governance document.
Yes.
Brilliant. Yeah, that's much better. Yeah, yeah, that's cool.
Thank you for that. That's verified there. Thank you very much. Anyone else want to speak? All in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. Against? Motion's carried. Thank you. Right, move on to the resolution monitoring report.
I can introduce.
Please.
Morning, councillors. This is the normal standard resolutions monitoring report. We will report all the resolutions from the previous meetings, and we state this is signed against it. If you've got any questions, happy to assist.
Questions around the table? I have one question, under the water service shareholder agreement with the government's announcement, in the last few days of only elected members having voting rights. What effect does this have on our independent shareholders on the water CCO? Perhaps,
I'll take it through you, Mr. Chair. That is something that we are going to need to work through. But essentially what the announcements pertain to was to voting rights for non-elected members on committees or subcommittees under the Local Government Act 2002. My understanding is that the shareholders representative forum, for example, is set up as a joint committee under the LGA. So there are some potential implications, but we also need to be mindful and keep in mind that these are currently only announcements. They aren't law at the moment, and there will be a process that will need to be worked through there, but we'll need to work through what those implications mean for us as we get to that point.
thank you, Mr. Markridge. Thank you very much. Anyone else? Questions? Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, just further to that, if I might add, that could we have something about what that might have on our risk and assurance committee, independent members as well? Not expecting an answer now, just as soon as I heard that, I wondered that. My question for this report is with the SRF members as well, just querying whether each of the applicants, both unsuccessful and those on hold, been updated on the situation.
Good question, councillor.
So through you, Chair, I will follow that up. I believe that the Chief Executive was talking with the preferred ones last week, but I'm not sure whether at this stage whether that was mentioned, but it's something that we will definitely follow up.
Thank you. Of another, if I may.
Yes.
There was a resolution about some information, it's like screens moving all over the place, about the recommendation about the advocacy at a national level on the affordability of water services. And I just want to note there that one of the things that we did talk about at an offline meeting about that recommendation was that the unaffordability of Three Waters be taken into the kaupapa of Mayor Will as he is going about all the other advocacy on infrastructure costs and unaffordability. And I just wanted to highlight that and check that message has been heard, that is starting, whether that is starting to come through in Mayor Will's advocacy on infrastructure as a whole. You want me to repeat that because it wasn't very clear? So at that offline meeting, we talked about Mayor Will's drive to Wellington to talk, his talking with Wellington about infrastructure from a bridge roading point of view. and we had asked that part of his work in that area would include Three Waters in that discussion. And I just want to make sure that that has been heard and is being acted on.
On my
Question to the comms manager, to Sarah.
If I can take that one, you know, I'm obviously not privy to all the discussions that the mayor's involved in, but what I can say is based on the work that I've seen in different fora, including conversation and simplifying local government, some of those big structural sort of reform processes, that affordability is something that comes up really often, and that you know, I have heard the mayor talk about it, but also give you some assurances that in terms of the work that officers are doing in the background, that affordability is front and centre of that work. That's probably about as far as I can comment on that particular point.
Yeah. Through you, Chair, it was more if he's having discussions in Wellington about bridges and infrastructure, he should be adding Three Waters into those sentences. Was the thrust of it, basically.
Good point.
Thank you.
Noted. Yeah, thank you.
Not should be, could be.
Everyone's happy? We have a mover, please, that the resolution monitoring report has been read. Thank you, councillor Moynihan, seconded, councillor Taylor. Thank you. Right, move on to the district plan fully operative decision. Hence the,
Just make sure that someone can.
right. Yep, it's a good idea. Thank you. We will, while we're waiting, we could Mr. Chamberlain do the next agenda item, the annual plan.
Good morning, Deputy Mayor, councillors. So the paper you have in front of you today presents two different versions of the annual plan. You'll recall that the annual plan was based off the year 3 of the 3-year plan. So year 3 of the 3-year plan originally had a projected rate increase of 10.9%.
Sorry, Mr. Chamberlain, can we just stall it there, because now we have Mr. Anstey there, and I'm sure that Mayor Will and
Councillor
CE and Councillor Nepi-Apatu would want to be here for that item. Thank you. Apologies. So, Ms. Anstey. And we go back to 35. You.
Good morning, council. Right, so the decision before you today is about is the next step in the district plan review, or the final step actually, is to make the district plan fully operative, because we've resolved the last appeal. So those new council, the district plan, we're required to have a district plan under the RMA. It sets out the zones and what activities are permitted in which zones and what have you. And we're required to review it every 10 years. The date on our last district plan was 2003. So we did stretch that out a wee way. But this review started in 2018. It was quite a big project for council. There was process and everything took a couple of years, and then we had ended up with 16 appeals, which we've been working through. We did resolve the majority of them. You might recall we had a decision at the end of 2024 to make the district plan operative in part, because we had resolved the majority of the appeals, but we've now resolved the final one. So the next step is to make it fully operative. I did cover off in there, you're probably aware that we've got RMA reform coming. So the new planning bill is fast approaching actually. But yeah, but basically the fundamentals of planning don't change. So we're in a good position now to go into that. We've mapped our significant landscapes and you know, productive soils and the rest. So all is not lost. And yeah, so I've briefly covered the pros and cons, but it's a pretty logical next step really. The next thing I do is put a public notice in that says the district plan will be operative on 16th of June is the date we've selected. And we have to notify the fee and authorities. I'm happy to take any questions.
For you, Mr. Chair, if I can just add to that, this feels actually an anticlimax, but it is actually a significant milestone in what has been years of work. There was a pretty substantive decision made, it was 18 months ago, 2 years ago now, to make the district plan operative in part. And we had this one remaining appeal that we had to work through the motions. We've now completed that. And so I just wanted to acknowledge the work that has been done on this for this council table, but also the previous 2 council tables. Really. And just wanted to make sure that was noted, and that we can reflect on what has been quite a long road, but actually in the grand scheme of things, from a planning perspective, things have happened actually quite quickly in terms of the resolution of those appeals, and it sets us up well, as Ms. Anstey has said, for the future in terms of our reform.
Thank you, Mr. Mugridge. That was something I was going to say. It was nearly 2.5 geraniums ago that we started talking about this. So, yeah.
It's got one. It's a big milestone for us and for planning and things like that, ticking that box. But just wanting to confirm through you, Mr. Chair, that for the general public as a whole, or mostly, nothing really changes from what's already operative to what we're doing here. Is it the zoning? Some people will notice changes from now, or is it just that specific?
Through you. Yeah, I mean, yes, I guess the appeal's been resolved for the zoning at 96 Mount Herbert Road. Yeah, but that's the only major change. The other parts of the plan have been operative since 2024, and even since the decisions really in 2023. So yeah, they have been. There won't be. Yeah, we'll take some words off, but there won't be anything.
Thank you.
Councillor Moynihan.
Yes, well done. Was there any important lessons learned from this whole district plan process? Do you think?
Don't leave it between.
Came out that we could tweak better for next time round.
I think the fact that it takes so long has actually driven some of the reform of the RMA. So there's going to be a lot more standardisation going forward.
So do you think we're in a position to move towards a new regional spatial plan and new RMA reform systems? We'll basically do that going forward now, do you think?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. So one good thing has come out of it.
That's right, yes.
Exactly. That's it. Question?
Roger's saying in within budget.
Big budget.
Budget.
6 and a bit years. Yeah.
Actually 9.
9 years what I'm starting to be doing.
Yeah, even.
It was one of the first strategic priorities 9 years ago after, when we adopted Thrive, was the one bit of feedback was sort your district plan out. So yeah, I'm sorry that it feels like an anticlimax and and we need to acknowledge the huge body of work. So well done, you guys.
So I'll thank you, Ms. Nancy. I will read the resolution, if I may. Approve those parts of the Central Hawke's Bay proposed district plan operative in part 2024 that have not previously been made operative, namely part 1, how the plan works section. B, part 2, UFD, urban form and section. C, the planning maps as they apply to the zoning of 94 to 96 Mount Herbert Road. D, the planning maps as they apply to the zoning of 25 Puna Waitai Road, Poruri. And E, new chapter DEV2, Golden Hills Development Area with amendments as per Environmental Court Consent Order date 23rd of March 26, in accordance with Clause 17 of Schedule 1 of the Resource Management Act 1991. 2, directs officers to publicly notify that the Central Hawke's Bay District Council will become fully operative on the 16th of June in accordance with Section 1, Clause 22 of the Resource Management Act 1991. 3, directs officers in accordance with Schedule 1, Clause 24 to provide a copy of the operative Central Hawke's Bay District Plan to the Minister for the Environment. And B, the regional council and adjacent territorial authorities, and C, tangata whenua of the area through iwi authorities. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Byrne.
Yeah.
Seconder, Councillor Taylor, you like to speak, Councillor Byrne?
Yeah, I'd love to, because this is a huge moment. I mean, it might be an anticlimax, but it is a huge moment. And I mean, this milestone reflects many years of dedication, you know, collaboration and commitment from past and present staff, elected members, experts, mana whenua in the community, who have all played a part in shaping the plan. And I think it's important to acknowledge everyone who has played a part. As the report acknowledges, we are in a good place with RMA reform. And, you know, with the regional spatial plans imminent, this plan, our plan, provides a really strong foundation. And yeah, we've got a lot of people to thank. And yeah, I'm not even going to begin to list them, because a lot of them were doing a lot of mahi before I even got onto council. And I've been, yeah, really honoured to be a small part of this huge amount of work. So, and I want to thank you, Kim, for seeing us through the last of the appeals. Yeah, but it's huge, and I think it's, yeah, it might feel anticlimactic, but it's just, yeah, it's a great place to be. So thank you.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Councillor Taylor.
Echo that completely. I would like to mention a couple who no longer sit around the table, Alex and Tim and Roger Marker, who sat on the original hearings panel, and us with Loretta and Robert on the, who am I missing? On the second panel, and the work of staff all the way through. Shout out to likes of Jessie, who organised the hearings for us, Tiff, who no longer works for council, Dylan and Kim on the way through. Just everything has just come together. It has taken a long time, but it has come together, and it's great to see. And no sooner do we get it signed off as operative, and we'll start watching the laws for things to change again. But yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Ian. Councillor Marker.
Thank you. I think acknowledgement has to go to Helen O'Shaughnessy too.
Oh, yes.
The very first meeting that we had when this was discussed, she was asked, well, by one of the councillors, what's the budget for this? That was 300,000. Since then, the plug's been out the whole time, and now the plug could go back in. So, what a milestone. So, and when she made a few presentations here, she was in tears over it, because she never had a budget and she was being asked to do things. It was, yeah, it affected her greatly, I can tell you, but she battled her way through. So I think she has to be acknowledged. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Can we ask just that sort of thing be noted in the minutes, particularly for Helen? Is it?
Or even
Consent.
we have send like a little card or something to some of these people, just to say, like, hey guys, yeah, Ian Sharp, the tenant was there, that as well.
What did you say about forgetting people?
Shows you how many people have been involved on this journey.
I'd really
Huge.
echo that. I'd love to see us sending something out to.
Say, hey.
Councillor Moynihan.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, I had a bit of a speech, and it was about budgeting. But I think it is important. It's been a long process. And I would like to acknowledge and congratulate all staff and the councillors present and past, and everyone else. Councillor Byrne, Councillor Taylor, who've on it. It's been a significant and timely piece of work, commencing in 2018, and reflects a substantial collective effort over many years. Also worth noting that this plan has quite a substantial amount of money from our ratepayers to bring it to completion. This demonstrates how complex and costly the current RMA framework can be. Just like there, with the government's proposed reforms, I am hopeful future plan making processes will be simpler, faster, and more affordable for future councils and ratepayers alike. And congratulations, you, like it said in the report, were one of the few councils around New Zealand that is operative, so well done. And thank you for your time you put into it, everyone.
Thank you, councillor. Anyone else? I'd just like to, add to, officers' comments here. The decision to make fully operative is a significant milestone for this council, and one that has been achieved in a relatively short time frame. The council is also one of the few councils in the country to have a fully operative district plan compliant with the national planning standards. The work completed through the district plan review places council in a very good position going on to a reform of the resource management system. I think we should all be very proud of that, and thank you very much. Awesome. All in favour?
Thank you.
Against? Which is carried. Thank you. I think we have some quite substantive agenda items coming up, so we will take a break and have a cup of tea early this morning while Mayor Will makes his way back and interim CE Ross makes their way back, which isn't too far away. Thank you. our agenda around to while we wait for Mayor Will. So we'll move on to the adoption of the governance statement on page 277. Thank you, Sarah.
Morning, the Deputy Mayor, Greg, and councillors. The adoption of the governance statement is a statutory obligation under the Local Government Act 2002, and it outlines the way the council engages with the community and makes decisions. It ensures that it provides opportunities for the community to comment on policies, activities, or priorities that are set by this table. And its aim is to ensure that the community can effectively influence those processes. In terms of its compliance, it has been checked, and we are confident that it is compliant with all the requirements under the LGA and the LGOIMA. And this process is simply requesting of the table to adopt the governance statement at this point in time.
Questions? Councillor Byrne.
I noted some of, just through you, some of the dates for the reviews. And some of the last review dates seem to be in the future. So I'm just wondering whether we need to enlighten. Maybe it's just an amendment or yeah, it's just
Noted, we'll review.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? An easy one. So, the recommendation that council adopts the governance statement for the 2025-28 triennium. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Byrne, seconded Councillor Moynihan. All in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Crowe. We'll move on now to page 330, which is the Central Line Sports Complex lease. Thank you.
Good morning, councillors. This report is consistent with council's earlier resolution to grant 2 leases to the Central Hawke's Bay District Community Trust, subject to no sustained objections being received through the consultation process. So it reports the outcomes of that consultation, and it enables council to meet its legislative obligation to consider submissions before deciding whether to confirm the leases. The community consultation did not identify issues of concern in relation to the proposed leases. In summary, this is primarily a procedural step to complete the Reserves Act process and enable the leases to be finalised. I'm happy to take any questions.
Questions, councillors? Councillor Taylor.
Just a slight, just need something confirmed in my own mind, looking at the map of the lease for the turf and the courts. We've received some commentary just in the past few days about some public toilets there. Are they inside that lease area or outside that lease area?
Through you, Chair, that they're outside of that lease area.
Thank you.
Further to that, if they are outside, are they fenced into the sports complex or they're available for the whole public?
Through you, they're available to the whole public.
Thank you. Yeah. Any other questions? So we have 2 options. Yeah, do I have a mover? You Councillor Cannon. And Councillor Byrne second. Like to speak, Councillor.
Well, just another shining example of being able to complete stuff, Mr. Marshall. Thank you so much. I think it'll be good for the trust and also for the people that run the facilities as well to have this done. And it's really good so that they can start to progress with their plans for the future. So yeah, just wanted to acknowledge that this has been a big piece of work for a long time, and you have come and been able to complete it, which is awesome. Thank you so much.
There's quite a recommendation there. Thank you. Would you like me to read that all out?
No, not if you, unless you want to.
That's fine. Thank you. So all in favour?
Aye.
Against? Thank you. Moved. Right. Now we are jumping ahead to quarter three organisation report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We'll just give a minute for councillors to get.
Which one's that?
48.
You, Mr. Chair, and good morning again, councillors. So yeah, this is the third quarter organisation report, which presents as part of our standard reporting, some of the highlights of what has happened throughout that period. It also tracks progress towards the key levels of service commitments that we have got for that period of time. The Chief Executive in his update at the front has acknowledged a few bits of work, and there's some key figures there that have stood out for the quarter, but we have the relevant GMs in the room for answering any questions that you may have in terms of the reporting.
You, Mr. Mudge. Right, questions. Councillor Byrne.
My question just relates to the request for service and just examples of what the leadership, governance and consultation request for services. Like, I mean, there's not a lot of them and they've definitely reduced from July, September 2025, but I'm just wondering what is an example of a request for service for leadership, governance and consultation?
Through Mr. Chair, I'd have to go to the detail of those ones, especially the ones we've received in the last quarter. You will see that there were a fair few back in July, September last year, which would have pertained to the election, I'm assuming.
So you're thinking maybe Lagoimas?
Lagoimas may be captured, although we've got a separate way of capturing those Lagoimas. Is there anything that you wanted to add, Ms. Roots, on that?
No, that is captured separately.
Okay. I know it's just a matter of interest of what it was, whether it's yeah.
We can have a look into that and get some further detail. There'll be specific requests that have been defined in that particular category.
Councillor Ross.
On the same, exactly the same table, I requested, going forward, could we split out, given the substance of the animal services and compliance, could those two be split out? Because it's quite interesting when you see actually the animal services and the compliance are quite different splits, and particularly around the animal control stuff we're seeing at the moment, to see actually how many RFPs we're getting around that team's dealing with. I think might be an interesting figure for for right now.
Do you want to comment? Noted.
Noted. Thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Byrne.
Thank you. Mine is on page 479. It's just relating to compliance and monitoring, and then I thought it was also building and consenting where we're not achieving. And I was wondering whether that was due to absence or due to a lack of resources because of a conscious budget decision that this table has made.
Through the chair. That it's a couple of reasons. No, it's not a reduction in resourcing. It was unplanned leave from one person in the team in particular, and that happened at the same time as transferring on to our new consent processing system. And that project took many more weeks than expected. So it was a unfortunate clash of things happening, but I think noted in the report, the average processing day count is all the way back down to normal. I think we're sitting on 10 to 12 days, average processing days. So I expect to see next quarter, we shouldn't have any issues. Thank you.
Councillor Taylor.
It's through you, Chair. This started off as a question in my head, but perhaps it pertains to the information that we're looking at getting coming to us with regards all our leases with buildings and things on page, the one about page 463, exterior painting of all external buildings at the Waipokoro Holiday Park. So just wanting to query if something is leased, like is that our responsibility or the leasee? That kind of questioning, because we don't know what our leases entail or the details of them. Is that something that we shouldn't be having to deal with? I don't know what my question is there.
Mr. Kinbeck.
Yeah, we, through you, Chair, we've got varying responsibilities for doing different things depending on the lease arrangements. Considering previous council conversations on this, I'm just wondering whether we could bring more visibility back to this table on leases, maintenance arrangements, what the committee hall governance are meant to do versus what we should be doing, just for visibility, particularly as we head into the next LTP.
That would be great, because am I correct in saying that there's a variation between?
Yeah, and there could be an opportunity to kind of optimize and make that a bit more consistent across the board. But visibility probably is the first step. I think that's the question.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you.
Councillor Lawrence.
Question as a new councillor around the table, the reference to PED shed, priority and measurability, percentage of dwellings within 10 minutes walk of a council owned or supported playground is a measurable instance, and kind of where does that fit in kind of everything we're doing?
Marshall.
Through you, Chair, sorry, could you repeat the question? I was making notes on
the PED shed, the measurability of something, of having a playground with a percentage of dwellings within 10 minutes walk of a council owned or supported playground. I'm just trying to understand the priority around that and its measurability.
Through you, Chair, this is actually something we were discussing yesterday. I was discussing with another colleague as we're beginning to prepare asset management plans, the next long-term plan, re-looking at what our levels of service and performance measures are, and whether that's the most suitable measure, or there might be a better way to measure that level of service. I think it's something that we'll come back to when we present our draft asset management plans, with some recommendations around the best way to measure that, and looking at examples from other councils as well.
Would that be seen as a priority in terms of what we're kind of saying the only way we can fix that is either building more playgrounds or building more houses? So it's just kind of the priority of that just is kind of a little bit lost on me.
If I can just say, my understanding is, and I'm not an expert in this field, but my understanding is that is one of the levels of service that is required. One of the
It's a DIA.
makes that.
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's silly.
Take your point and agree with that.
Yeah.
So was that your question, Councillor?
Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Taylor.
I just think it also refers to when we do those plans where we map out what's in the central city and Waipokoro for the town. Sorry. Yeah, I forgot the name of the plans. That was one of the things that we had in those, the circle that you pinpoint and you draw the circle, that they've got to have certain things within certain walking distance. Yeah, there's a regulatory. Sorry, no question, just explaining further.
Councillor Evan.
Yeah, and Yeah, that kind of stuff on its own, without going through our LPP process yet. As that unfolds for you, you'll start to realise how it all starts to layer out, and then it gets into the very key sort of measurable stuff like that. Yeah, but it's quite confusing when you see it on a piece of paper, and a lot of the stuff comes back to your sort of community outcomes and your targets and things like that as well, which will start to unfold. And then a lot of it is being linked into the legislation. So yeah, it's a big beast. Or another one, Chair.
Councillor Taylor.
It's a question this time. Russell Park, BOF quick wins, installing page 460, installing toilets near the netball courts, extra seating and shade sale through external funding. I just want confirmation, was that in the Russell Park master plan that the members of the public were able to view? And did we do any extra getting a feeling from the public before those toilets were installed?
Mr Marshall.
Yeah, was it in the master plan, and did we do any extra community conversation?
Through you, Chair, I would need to double check, but I'm fairly confident it was in the master plan. And I believe that the work for what was decided and confirmed for that better off funding was based on what was in the master plan with a site walkover with some staff, and I think some user groups. This was before I started, and it's based on what had been in that master plan, which had previously been through in public engagement, stakeholder engagement.
Yeah, just to add to that, through you, Chair, we did engage with the user group, and we were clear that the toilets were part of that quick wins project. We have had one comment from a community member who lives opposite. I met with that community member yesterday, and she is satisfied with the screening proposal that we're going to do there. So I've closed that query off, that came in writing to Mayor Will and all councillors, and I think she was more concerned about parking in front of her property actually. So we're kind of looking to help her with that issue as well.
Could I just ask that if it's known that Mayor and all councillors have also received that, and I know it's where you just said it was yesterday, so that's you met with her, but to have that closed with us as well as closed would be great.
Yeah, I was planning on actually giving you a debrief in council only time today on three issues, and that was one of them. So I thought I would just front foot that now.
Thank you.
I think that was probably on other minds as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Lawrence.
Through you, Chair, just one more question on page 455. It discusses the 2026 that will undertake a representation review in 2026. Will that still be ongoing given what's currently happening?
Through you, Mr Chair, as part of the work on simplifying local government, one of the statements the government has made is until the system has changed, all statutory obligations continue to exist. That is one of the statutory obligations we have, so we need to pursue that. And saying that, there have been some discussions to date around potential regulatory relief, but at the moment we can only go on what we have, and that is what the law says currently at the moment.
One more through you, Chair. It's operationally talking about the fortnightly joint inspections with council and contractors around public toilets. Was this a performance issue, and as the fortnightly inspections kind of resolved any perceived issue that was happening?
Mr Marshall, are you?
Sorry.
Through you, Chair, I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with this. I'll need to ask some questions and come back on that one.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right, any more questions? Just a very good report once again. So yeah, can I have a mover that the organisation report is received? Councillor Byrne, second Councillor Taylor. You want to speak? Okay, thank you. Right, we're just going to have a bit of a reorganisation. Welcome Mayor Will back and councillor, and they'll be able to the our Wharenaki.
Kia ora.
Where we go to now?
Well, welcome back everyone, and thank you very much to Jerry and everyone else for getting the morning started while a few of us were off signing the Whātuma Accord, which went very well. So could I please call on Mr. Chamberlain for up to the item adoption of annual plan 26-27.
Well, good morning, Your Worship and councillors. So in front of you today, you have two versions of the draft annual plan. Just reminding you that this is year 3 of our current long-term plan, which forecasts that our rates were going to be in the vicinity of 10.9% increase. You'll recall that back in May, I brought back a revised version that had the rates sitting at an average of 6.7%, and that's after taking into account things that we know that have changed since the original LTP was put together, and the use of carry forwards and better off funding and other things to try and soften that rate increase. However, it was pointed out at the time that this budget was built over the back end of 2025 and early 2026, before the current conflict in the Middle East and the fuel escalations began to appear. So there is a risk that at 6.7%, should the fuel prices be passed through to council, which they invariably will through our contracts, that actually the budget was possibly a little bit light in terms of taking into account fuel escalations. So at that point, I got asked to bring back an alternative budget, which is what I'm presenting to you this morning. You'll see of interest at the bottom of page 93, a graph that is taken from the interest.co.nz website, showing fuel prices and showing how they have been relatively stable over the past sort of 2-year period until late February, early March, where they spiked considerably. Thankfully, we're now starting to see a softening of those, but they're still well above the average over the past 2 years. So later in May, after I presented the original paper, I came back in a workshop and presented some thinking around what fuel escalations might mean to this council. And you'll see a table there on page 94 of what I presented. And this is only looking at operational activities and largely ignored our subsidised roading activity, because the NZTA had already indicated that they expected us to live within our existing budgets. So at that point, I suggested that operationally, council could be, at a worst case scenario, on the hook for an additional $1 million that wasn't originally budgeted for in the 6.7% version. At the same workshop, I suggested that there were 3 main ways of us dealing with that. One would be to pass those additional costs through to the ratepayer. One would be to pass them through in fees and charges, or one would be to do what NZTA is asking us to do, and that's to pull back some of our programs and think about how we do things differently to try and live within existing budgets. At the workshop, it was asked that I bring back an alternative budget, taking into account particularly those first 2 rates and fuel surcharging. And that's what you have in front of you today. I have also taken the liberty to soften perhaps some of those projections of $1 million worth of fuel costs and have pulled those back to $560,000. So not quite as dramatic as that $1 million, but still another $500,000 that we need to find in our budgets. So what I'm suggesting here is an alternative budget. So you've still got the original 6.7 and the alternative is a 7.4% average rate increase, which passes some of those costs through to the ratepayer and passes some of the costs through to council's customers through fuel surcharging. And again, my recommendation would be that we link that fuel surcharging to the well-known Gas Spy website. So where the fuel price remains at $2.50 or above for diesel, according to that website, then we would pass on fuel surcharges. If the war is resolved and fuel prices return to the normal level, which is more around the $2 mark, then obviously we would stop surcharging at that point. So what you have in front of you is two versions of the budget, taking into account those two different scenarios. Obviously, they're not the only scenarios, but they're just the ones that I have worked up for you here. And yeah, happy to debate this further.
Thank you. I'm sure there'll be questions. Councillor Choke.
Through your chair. Currently, does the council get any fuel discounts of any? Like, are we with?
Yeah, so in terms of actual council spend at the pump, council spend at the pump is only a very small part of what we would be passed through in terms of fuel costs, because most of our fuel costs actually sits with our contractors. So the likes of our solid waste team, the likes of our parks and reserves team, the people that look after the cemeteries and dig the graves, etc. So we don't control who they buy their fuel through, but in terms of council and our own fleet, we certainly have agreement, all of government agreement that all councils across New Zealand use with BP, which allows us a discount from the pump price that the public would pay.
Councillor Byrne.
Are we aware of any other councils building a contingency into their annual plans to cover this current fuel crisis?
There is a mixture of reactions across the country. So some councils are building fuel contingencies into their budgets. Other ones are so far down the budget setting process that they have chosen to take the risk and ignore the current fuel escalations, hoping that they return to normal in the next financial year.
You got a supplement to that?
Yeah. Have we done it in the past? I mean, I know we haven't had a fuel crisis like this, but have we foreseen something coming and thought we need to ensure that we can meet our budget in the future, so we'll make a contingency now? Is that something we've done in the past?
We certainly take into account any knowledge as part of this budget setting process. So if you remember back during COVID, when our freight costs and everything were going up, we were certainly budgeting for additional freight costs. It probably wasn't quite as blatant as what we're doing here, because obviously we already had presented budgets without it. And now we're saying, actually, maybe we should be putting some provision in there. The other thing I mentioned in the report is if fuel prices do go back down and we have contingencies that we don't use, then that will be money that is retained and then can be used like we are this year as a carry forward to offset the following year's rate. So it's not something that we're going to pocket and keep. It'll be something that will still benefit the ratepayer, but it's just the timing of when we ask for that money.
I'll come to you, Councillor Taylor, but could I just ask a supplement to kind of everything you just said? So if we go the opposite way, if we chose the lower rating increase, and like you said, some councils are taking that risk, but the fuel price stays at a high level, then what does that scenario look like 6 months, 12 months down the track?
So what that'll most likely mean is at the end of the year, we will have an unbalanced budget and that we would have spent more than what we have collected in rates. And that would mean that our activities, particularly solid waste and our open spaces, for example, will be in deficit. And at that point, we'll be looking to how do we fund that deficit? And if there are no activities in surplus, then the only real option at that point, because the year is finished, is to basically loan fund the shortfall. And then obviously that loan becomes something that will need to be repaid and will need to be rated for in future years.
I think just to add to that, through you, Your Worship, that's correct. But we would also look to actively manage our programs and services as we go through in conjunction with the council. But for instance, in the land transport area, Mr. Kinberg's talked to NZTA. Their short response was live within your means. So we would be looking to actively manage our resale budgets and things like that to not have bad outcomes, but to manage our expenditure within budget. And we'd look to apply those principles where possible across the organisation. Solid waste might be different because you can't really cut back on collecting waste, and you need to compact at the landfill to retain the space capacity. But we will be looking to actively manage the issues, and we'll be doing that anyway. Even if you do make a budget allowance, we'll be looking to actively manage things so that we're within that budget allowance and hopefully within a good margin within it.
So there certainly are activities like, just throwing an example out there, but not saying that we'd necessarily do this. For our mowing of our open spaces, for example, there is a frequency at which we do those mowing activities. If we were trying to save money and save fuel, we could alter that frequency and allow the lawns to get a little bit longer, or you could mow without catches. There's lots of little tweaks you could do to try and live within your means on a temporary basis, and then obviously you would revert back once the fuel prices return to normal.
So Taylor.
Yeah, thank you, through you. My question was, how is the money accounted for if the estimated rising fuel costs are not realised, which you've answered, but my question is, can it be ring fenced to the rating area that it came from? Or do we need a recommendation within this that says where this fuel escalation money would go to if it's not realised?
So where we have estimated there to be cost increases, we put those cost increases in those activities. So certainly when we come to allocate the rates get allocated to the costs. So therefore it'll be the solid waste activity that would be sitting in surplus, or it'll be the open spaces activity that would be in surplus. So you'd be able to see the connection between the rate and the underspend. So we certainly would be able to consider that, as we normally do at year end when we consider the carry forwards each year.
That's Lamont.
Yes, thank you. Just in regards to the fuel surcharge that we've got here on the table, 10. How do you work out the methodology of the price of that? Can you go up or down, or is this a standard charge?
So what I have done, obviously, what I have based the surcharging to be on is the price at the end of April, and I have taken into account how much it's gone up from where it was back in February, and said, well, what does that work out as a per kilometre base, based on a standard vehicle with like a 7 litre per 100 kilometre consumption rate? What would that be per kilometre given what the price has gone up by? So it's It's not an exact science because, as you say, fuel prices go up and down, and that 10 cents, if you were calculating it on a daily basis, might be 9 cents one day, it might be 11 the other. I've just tried to come up with a scenario based on the pricing that we're seeing at present.
Just to confirm that $2.50, that's including GST?
Sorry?
Oh, that $2.50 for the diesel price.
It's the pump price, so it's the price that's appearing on the GATSPI website.
Yep.
Including.
Yeah, so it'll be inclusive of GST.
Any other comments? Councillor Byrne, I mean.
Obviously, if we adopt the 7.4 and I don't know, let's hope the war finishes in the next month. We are then collecting rates that potentially we don't need, but we can't give those back. But in the case of fees, we can stop charging them.
Correct. That's why I'm saying the fuel surcharge will be linked to the fuel price. So as soon as the fuel price returns below $2.50 at the pump, then we will stop charging that. So we will, so potentially in 3 months' time, if the war is finished and the fuel prices have gone back down, yes, we still have to collect rates right through to June at the level that we've set them at, but the fuel surcharging we can stop immediately.
So, sorry, is there the opportunity then to maintain the rate increase at 6.4? And
6.7.
Sorry, 6.7.
Yep.
6.4 even sounds even better. And continue to increase the fees while they're needed. What impact would that have?
Yeah, so I think I've mentioned in my report find it. From memory, the fuel surcharging was going to collect around about 96,000. So obviously, you could keep the rates at 6.7 and elect to do the fuel surcharging, which if the fuel surcharging goes all year, will collect around about 96,000. Obviously 96,000, if you're talking a cost to council of somewhere between $500,000 and $1 million, 96,000 doesn't go very far, but it is a step in the right direction and does allow you to have a mechanism to turn it off as soon as things return to normal. So that is an option that council could consider.
Thank you. Given the recent fuel adjustment claim from one of our contractors, has this cost been incorporated into the assumptions of this paper? And do we know how many other contracts include fuel escalation provisions?
So the first part of your question, the fuel surcharge claim from one of our contractors has only just come through in the last week. So this paper had already been prepared before that. But Mr. Kinvig might be able to shed some more light on how many of our contractors have that type of clause in their contract.
Yeah, through you, Chair, we do have cost escalation prices across our term contracts. They don't just cover fuel, they cover indices around general construction, labour, as well as fuel. So typically the road maintenance contract has got standard NZTA cost escalation requirements in there, and we apply them on a regular basis and adjust, you know, the costs of how much we pay the contractors based on those escalations. It's quite a dynamic thing throughout the same contract.
No more. Oh, sorry.
So just trying to get my head around that. So if the cost escalation is already there, this is this is well and over above. Well, this cost escalation, this allowance here is for those that have not already got their allowance written within their budget, or is that going to actually allow these ones to actually come back and go even further with the cost escalation?
So our budget is based off our prior year histories and what we know is our base cost. Things like the fuel escalations come in and they make an adjustment claim. So these adjustment claims are over and above our base that our original 6.7 was based on. And what we're now starting to see is that the first of our contractors are now coming through and saying, hang on a minute, our 25-26 agreed rate was pre-fuel prices, and now we're wanting the 25-26 agreed rate plus a fuel surcharge. So we're starting to get passed on those fuel surcharges. At the moment, we've got no mechanism for recouping that off our ratepayers or off our customers. So we're absorbing that. But what we're saying is, should we be making a provision for the next year so that we have the income to cover the additional outgoings that these contractors are now starting to pass through?
Through you, Chair, can I just add how cost escalation plays out in the bitumen with bitumen material? Because we're always taking into account the cost of bitumen, which is always kind of fluctuating. So what we do typically is if the bitumen price is really high and then we can see that it's going high, we just reduce our ceiling output rather than blowing the budget. So we are constantly dealing with these kinds of escalations. It's just that this is a new type of escalation in just fuel.
Sorry, be asking all the questions. When we look at the table that we've been given, the majority of the cost escalation we're looking at could be in the solid waste area. Okay, and yeah, we've got the 96,000 that we could get, adding it onto fees and charges. If we were to look at the targeted rate, general rate, could we just focus on increasing the solid waste components? So like,
Yep. So again,
it's not a fair question.
So what I have done is I have looked at that table that you see there on page 94 and said, well, these are the areas that you're going to see cost escalations come through. And I have put a little bit of budget into each of those areas. I think what your question was can I remove the budget allocations to every area? So community facilities, toilets, open spaces, roading, water, and just leave the solid waste there? And the answer is yes, I could. Obviously, that would put the other activities potentially in danger unless you alter your levels of service. But yeah, for sure. And we certainly can look at that if that's something that the table wishes to pursue.
Mix.
It's just, sorry, through you, it's just that, you know, we're saying that we can't stop picking up rubbish, we can't stop, what do you call it, compacting the landfill, those sorts of things. So those are obviously critical. Whereas NZTA is saying, okay, well, it's cost escalation, stop sealing, stop this, stop that. So, you know, if this is where we can't change things, why don't we just look at, I don't know, what would, it's hard, isn't it? Because we're in the middle of trying to adopt it, and I'm throwing another.
Yeah, there's no right or wrong answers here. All you can do is make your best assumptions and deal with what you have in front of you. So I don't envy this table trying to make a very hard decision.
I've just got a comment from the CEO and we'll come to you.
I think those are really good questions. Essentially, you've got a risk management decision here as to whether you make provision now front for something you think might happen and is likely to happen to some extent, or you don't make provision and deal with it further down the track. And either of those are valid options, or as you've said, you pick out the areas that are most likely to and have less flexibility for managing the impacts, and you deal with those. So all of those options are good. it is a judgment call, and whatever you decide, we just need to be conscious. We'll have to deal with that and manage it as we go forward.
Councillor Lawrence.
Looking at page 96 of the report, we're talking about a 6.7% rise, but for a lot of people, actually the implications of this change is still going to be kind of an 8 or 9% rise based on the percentage change to them based on where they are. So it's the comms of that as well, and that we're talking about 6.7, but we put this out there and it's going to be a 9, or and if we go to the higher rate, we're going to be up over that 10%. So my question is, you communicating that, because for some people it's going to be a much lower than that, but for others it's going to be much higher.
So remembering that one of the things that we've done to get down to the 6.7 is utilise all that better off funding, and it's being utilised in the water and wastewater delivery space. So that's all the connected households. So while it's a 6.7% average, those that are connected to our water networks are likely to be more down in the 4s and 5s, and those that are in looking after their own water out in the rural areas, it's more likely to be around the 8-9%, which is just reminding you that this is the opposite of what we've seen in the past 2 years. So the residential ones have gone up dramatically more than the rural for the past 2 years, and now we're seeing the wheel turn a little bit.
It's a really good question though, and it reminds me of a neighbouring council that have come out with single-digit annual plan figure, and then individual properties are 30 to 40%. Is there any case that could be like that, that's hidden from us and not in this table, but situations like that?
Not to the best of my knowledge. Remembering that the scenario that you're talking about was to do with the revaluation of the properties, and the issue you have when you revalue properties is that not all properties in the district go up or down by the same amount. And in Hastings' case, the commercial properties went up slightly and the residential properties came down, and that shifted the balance of how the rates were apportioned between the two property types. We don't have a revaluation here, so the only scenario that could possibly be where rate increases beyond these samples that you've got here is where there's been a new building added, or some sort of property amalgamation or subdivision going on that has altered the underlying value of the property.
Councillor Annan, did you?
Yeah, I mean, I was quite firm on didn't want to go out with anything more than the sort of 6.7. But I don't know, I'm speaking because it's a big topic for us, but I suppose to my fellow councillors about, so long as we're clear on the fact that that money goes straight back to where it's come from next year and the next financial year, is really, really important to that mixed model. Cost reduction and it's, what do you call it, a mix or mixed bag or something like that, those sorts of things. I guess where I struggle is that we've never done this before. It's never really been a policy decision, so that's what I'm really grappling with. So I guess my question is this like gonna signal maybe a bit of a change to a treasury management policy or something like that later on? Traditionally, councils have never really rated for rainy day stuff. They take the stuff that's in front of them and they rate for it, and then they clean it up at the end of the year. This is significantly sort of a different way of doing things, and we have done bits of it in the last few years because we had a lot of stuff thrown at us. So yeah, just it's a fundamental change and switch in the way that we actually are rating and doing things. And I think the challenge for us is what is is that going to affect some of our policy stuff in the future through the long-term plan process? But also, what is our message to the community that this is now different as well, and we're going to reassure them that if yes, we are banking for a bit of a rainy day and unexplained costs, but we actually are going to make sure that that money will return to them should we not use it. This is not just a lazy war of, yep, no, sweet as you guys all just keep putting your prices up and keep coming back to us as much as you can, because we just will pass that fee on. Yeah, so there's two questions there. Does it affect our treasury management policy, and what is the comms message to the community to really reassure them that this is we're taking this really seriously?
I think through you, I'll get Brent to comment on the policy issue in a minute. I don't think it will affect the treasury management policy and even the revenue and financing policy, but I'll get you to talk on that, Mr. Chamberlain. I think just before I do that, I think we certainly can craft the comms message to reflect your decision, and that because I think fundamentally one of your key roles is about managing the principal risks that the council faces, and you've got a set of data in front of you around what's happened to fuel prices since the end of February. That's sort of a sustained range in costs. You're now getting that reflected through the clauses and contracts that allow for those fuel escalations, and you're rightly trying to make a prediction around what might, with imperfect information, what's somebody around the world's going to make decisions about what's going to happen next, but what that might mean in terms of cost profile for the council and its operations. So that's absolutely, one of the roles of the council is to make those judgment calls, and you get that slightly wrong. Well, nobody's got a crystal ball. You've got tools to deal with that. And one of the tools you're considering is making an allowance now. But if that doesn't come to pass and you collect too much money, then that has to go to the services that you've collected it for, and that will flow through to offsets in future years, needing the rate requirement in future years. If it does work out, then you've done the right thing. But I think any of those options that have been discussed are open to you. They're perfectly lawful and prudent decisions. You either deal with it make an allowance to deal with it up front, or you deal with it later on in a context of some of the legislative reform that might come through. Dealing with it up front may not be too bad a thing, but you're open to any of those decisions. But Brent, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I don't think it has any impact on our existing policies. Essentially, when councils put together a budgets are always based on assumptions. And so we've got one assumption that the world's all good and the war's finished and fuel prices return to normal. And we've got one assumption where we're saying, actually, we think this is going to carry on for longer, and there will be costs that council will be impacted by. And under both scenarios, you're setting a rate and fees and charges at a level that'll cover the costs that you're budgeting on, which is based on your assumptions. So I don't see that there's a fundamental policy change here. It's just an assumption change that the budgets are built on. The other comment that I would make, you were saying it's not something that we normally do in terms of rating in advance. And I can actually think of two examples that council is already doing that. So one is we have a catastrophic fund that is like a self-insurance fund. Every year we put money into that catastrophic fund, which is a reserve, which we don't spend unless we absolutely have to. If there's a weather event, we know that that money's there and we can dip into it. So that's a little bit like rating in advance of the weather event, because we don't know when they're going to happen. And the assumption is that at some point a weather event will happen and we'll need that reserve. So we rate in advance. The other example is around the landfill aftercare. So every time you go to the landfill or buy a rubbish bag or go to the transfer station, a little bit of your fee is actually going into a reserve to look after the landfill once it is closed, because we have a 30-year obligation to carry on monitoring that and make sure that the rubbish is contained and kept safe and not leaking into the environment. So again, we're rating or collecting money in advance of work that's going to happen post-closure. So there is precedence here for making assumptions around what your future costs might be and putting money aside or a budget aside to deal with that.
Yeah, I'm just not sure I agree with the rainy day terminology, because the fuel price is the fuel price today.
Right, the raining.
It's not a now have, we know it is happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I think if we were trying to preempt the war starting and the fuel price, then yeah, hang on. I can see it's quite difficult for people to land on something here. Councillor Muggeridge, would you like to comment, at least if you haven't got a question? Just
I haven't got a question, that's why I haven't been.
Just making yourself a debate, but yeah, if you've got anything to add.
Well, just adding, the rainy day part is hoping that the fuel prices come down. We've got a budget with what we've got at the moment. That's what the prices are. So, so we're not doing anything out of the norm. And you know, I don't like living within our budgets if we don't increase, because the ratepayer would say now you're increasing 0.7% from 6.7 to 7.4, but you're going to leave it at 6.7, you can live within your budgets. Well, why isn't your budget 6%? Yeah, that's the argument. You know, we've gone through it with a fine-tooth comb to a certain extent and worked out what our costs are, and baseline is 6.7%. We've got a known increase that's going to affect that, so we can't not budget for it. As far as I can see, we've just got to. Otherwise, as I say, we go back to our baseline 6%, and you've got the only way of doing that is to drop some services. And when we went through it, no one wanted to drop those services. So just because the crunch has come on now, why is there a different opinion? So that's the way I look at it. So on that note, I'll move into the 7.4%. Right. 7.4%.
Councillor Moynihan, second. Anything more?
Really?
But back front, that's okay.
I just think, you know, if we're going to be good governors, we can't turn a blind eye to this because it's in front of us. So I know the pain will be felt, but yeah, it's not good practice to end up at the end of the year with great deficits in each activity, and then try and pick up the pieces from that, because you know the worst thing is that something else goes wrong around the world and we have to increase more next year, plus look after those deficits. So you just got to play with what we've got at the moment.
Okay, just word from CE.
Through you, your worship, I'm just making sure we've got the right one, because
Yeah, that was a bit complicated.
Yeah, about
the 7.4%.
yeah, 4, 5 and 6 on the front page. And it's actually option 1 and further down in the back. Yes, always like to be sure.
Resolution 4, 5 and 6.
Yeah.
Could I just check that Councillor Moynihan?
Option 1. It's
It's option 1 on page 99.
Okay, would you like to speak, Councillor Moynihan?
I just like, so I was initially leaning to the 6.7. Plan increase due to short-term affordability pressures on our ratepayers at this current economic environment. But then, like Councillor Muggeridge said, I'm now mindful that we need to take a longer view, term view a little bit, I think. The fuel costs remain high, we are likely to see operating deficits that will need to be funded through borrowing or future rates increases, which simply differs the cost to our ratepayers. Councillor Mugg, just no disrespect for you, but you did say that we all came around here looking at ideas. We could cut services. I did bring it up. One was doing recycling fortnightly, but I was informed we didn't have enough time and it was going to go to the long-term plan. So I have brought things up in the past.
6 years ago, COVID hit, if you remember, and we all thought the world was going to end. And at regional council, it was a 8-to-1 decision to do a 0% rates increase, and we borrowed the increase, and that still haunts that organisation today. And so from that lesson, I think I'm like all of you, wanted to go with the lower increase, but I just know if the fuel price stays the way it is and we have to borrow at the end of the year to cover it, longer term it will be all decisions. So on that basis I'll support the 7.4% motion from Councillor Muggeridge. And I think it doesn't stop here. We've got the long-term plan coming up, and we just need to get really innovative and creative around what we can do to help this, because if 12 months down the track and we are still no better off with fuel price and cost escalation, then something's got to change. Councillor Ben.
Sorry, you.
No, you're good.
Yeah, I'm not going to support the motion, and I wasn't going to support 1, 2, or 3 either. I was going to support 1, 2, or 3 with amendments, because we have got households in our community that are having to work within very strict budgets, and I understand we can cut services and those sorts of things, but I think we can increase fees, and we can also increase the solid waste, to ensure that there is some fat in the system to accommodate the current crisis. But I hear all the time that council can just keep increasing rates, and but the incomes of our people are not changing. And it just concerns me that we have the ability to say, okay, let's just put on another 0.7%, but but nobody's out there is getting a 0.7%. Well, they may be increase in their wages, so that concerns me. So I was going to recommend 1, 2, and 3 with amendments.
Councillor Taylor.
I think we're not necessarily preparing for a rainy day because we already have our wet weather gear on. We're already, as we've been told, getting the surcharges from our contractors. We know that it's here. All signals point to fuel prices in New Zealand likely to stay relatively high and volatile over the next 12 months. It's something we know. Thank you for bringing up the precedent of the catastrophic events fund and the landfill aftercare costs, because I hadn't sort of thought of them as being a precedent for preparing for something that might happen. Some of those at the table will recall an issue a few years ago with unexpected drastic movement in the carbon credits that left us with a huge budget deficit in the landfill a couple of years ago, that we all sat around here going, oh crap, and words to that effect. And I think I don't want to be left in that situation again with that hole. That was unexpected. This is expected. But I would ask that how that money will be accounted for at the end is an important factor, that it goes back into those who've spent that money. So whilst I completely agree with the hurt of the increase in households, I think we would not be doing a governance duty if we didn't recognise the risk that is in front of us now with the fuel prices.
Councillor Ennan.
Yeah, I was hopeful for the 6.7 as well, but yeah, I'm going to have to support this motion as well. I am confident that we've got a really good management team that are very well connected to community and to the pain that our community is feeling. So I know that you will do your darndest to make sure that that mixed bag of stuff and dealing with this is absolutely there in play. But yes, we have to play our hand as well as governors and say, right, well, let's face it and realise it and actually plan for it. I've never been a fan of borrowing against future generations for things like this. I get the future users of infrastructure and assets and things like this. But the reality is this is what we're dealing with, and we will have to pay for it now, rather than hoping that it goes away and we then have to potentially borrow from the next generation to pay for it. So yeah, so I'm going to support that. I do want to step away for a second from the monetary or the percentage side of things and just sort of maybe talk to the front end of the annual plan booklet and where it comes down to the message from the mayor and councillors. And look, I haven't got a crystal ball, but we've got some strategy sort of sessions that are coming up and things like that. But you can really start to see very clearly that we're heading down a path of wanting to maintain our local voice, our localism. What does local look like for us in the future that we're all now facing? Advocacy with Mayor Will, with all the things that he's doing in that other space. But I think there's going to be definitely a lot of stuff that we need to start thinking about as well, and then really addressing that affordability, which is something that is in our priority. But yeah, so just sort of wanted to, you know, maybe whether or not there was room to play with those words, maybe we need to actually start weaving that kind of conversation or those kind of talks into the front end of every document now, but so that our community really know that we're taking that seriously with what's looming as far as the future amalgamations and things like that. Yeah.
Actually, I might just set clarification as adoption of this, set that and that opening.
We can make changes to that opening word quickly. We don't have a lot of time, but we've got.
Yeah, because
Yeah, so 0.5 that you're adopting allows the chief executive in conjunction with the mayor to make changes to the draft that you have in front of you. So if you'd like some wording changes, I suggest in the next day or so you with Mayor Will and Ross.
Any other comment? No. More reply, Councillor Margaret.
So we're talking about that catastrophic events fund. I thought, is this a catastrophic events? Can we put something out of there? Not knowing what's going to happen with simplifying local government and whether things are going to be ring fenced. Will we lose that fund when we go into an amalgamation? But yeah, too many guesses and too many assumptions, I think. So I think we've just got to stay the path that we're on.
there wasn't a lot in it, I think.
Would be enough to offset this.
Yeah.
Okay, all those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. The next item is budget reallocation.
Going to leave the top.
Okay.
How are you?
So the paper that you have in front of you is a request from the interim regional office to allocate some budget that we have for the current financial year. So this is the 25-26 year that we're 3/4 of the way through. So the interim regional office was set up to help coordinate regionally in light of the fact that HB Reader has been closed. They are currently working across the 5 councils on things such as simplifying local government, working on things such as advocating to central government on things such as the Heinz, Watty and McCain's food closures. They're advocating in the housing area, and they're continuing with the cyclone recovery work. So that's what they're essentially set up to do. When HB Reader was shut, there was some funds left over from that, and that's what's currently funding them. However, that funding is only through to September next year. And what they are now coming to us and asking is that the money that we originally set aside to fund Hawke's Bay Regional Economic Development Fund Agency is reallocated and is put into a pot that will allow this interim office to continue operating beyond September next year. So at this stage, the request is being made to Napier Council, Hastings Council and ourselves, and a similar request has gone to Regional Council. Regional Council is a little bit different in that the 4 territorial authorities is being asked to make the decision now, and Regional Council is going to be asked to make the decision towards the end of June. At this stage, Wairoa is out of the mix. So what they're asking is for us to reallocate the budget that we were originally going to pay to Economic Recovery, the HB Reader, to this new entity. So there's no budgetary implications because we already have the budget set aside, and it is contingent on Hastings and Napier also making the same decision. So if any one of the 3 councils declines this, then the others aren't expected to put in their share either. So that's the request you've got in front of you, and I'll let you debate the merits or not of the request.
Just a clarification, when you say September next year, you mean next financial year? So this September coming up is when the current funds that they're utilising was expected to last.
Yep.
And a big part of the coming back to us early is the simplifying local government work. That's kind of wasn't forecast when we initially set the regional office up. Laverne.
You just said that part of the program is the simplifying local government. And this is a pet peeve of mine because Wairoa isn't funding this, but they're actually, when we talk about it later, they're part of it. So if that's what the regional office is doing, how are we going to get Wairoa to actually come to the party on this?
Yeah, good question. So they pulled out of Reader probably, I don't know, was it another 6 months before the regional office was set up? The regional office was set up with funding from RRA interest earned on funds. So that in effect was Wairoa was part of that. So up until these funds last, Wairoa is eligible, I guess, to be receiving the service. So it's a good question you raise going forward. And I guess we'll get to a point where in 8 to 9 weeks with simplifying, the Wairoa will want to be part of the Head Start process alongside other Hawke's Bay councils or not. And that's probably the time to say, you know, if you're either in or out of that process and this funding.
So this funding actually will be after they make that decision. Like we're not actually funding Wairoa being part of a decision that they're not paying for. Like, yeah. So at the moment, Wairoa is part of the interest that was earned from the RRA. Yeah. Okay. So yeah.
That
Yeah.
makes me
So
feel a
the-
little bit happier.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That clarifies. There might be a little bit of crossover, but I think we're going to get to a crunch point where they're either in a Hawke's Bay group or not, and it might make it easier for if they don't want to fund it and they don't want to be part of anything going forward, or they are fully in.
Okay.
Councillor Eamon.
What do you think we get, well, what will we get over and above than what we're already getting now? Seems to be that we're always our own staff are having to manage these sorts of processes, come up with comms and all that sort of stuff, apart from those two that came to talk to us, a few selected councillors, well, not so we weren't selected, but those that could attend. Yeah, there doesn't really seem to be much more that we have got visibility over, but I really want to hear from you really as to how you see that, but also to make sure that what we're getting is actually going to relieve the stress of our own staff and our own management and our own team. And it's going to be a benefit for us in a lot of ways, because it's a big process, I get it, but our staff are doing a really good job of it already. So what over and above does it release from them?
I guess in terms of releasing staff on it.
Yes, so through you, your worship. So as staff, we are committed to a bunch of these work programs, and it's not just simplified local government, as you've put out. We are involved at different levels. What the region office does, however, is to coordinate that regionally, and that's something that means we don't have to do.
Yeah.
And look, from where I sit, and in terms of the relationship that I've got with the staff from the region office, I can only vouch for the value that office brings to not only the region, but actually the value that we get out of it for Central Hawke's Bay. One recent example, you might be aware of a government announcement on $50,000 being released to support a feasibility study for the McCains. We would not. I don't believe that we would have been in this position without the coordination and advocacy that the regional office has led alongside the mayors. So from where I sit, I can only vouch for the value that we get out of this organisation and that we have had today.
Yes, Councillor Margaret.
What's the resource we're paying for here?
Yeah, who is the regional office?
So it was Hawke's Bay Reader, so that was wound up. We had the RRA, which was funded by.
I understand all that. I just want to know what personnel, how many actual people sitting on seats are we paying for here?
So through your worship, there is a chief executive, there is a deputy chief executive, and as I understand it, there's 2 staff. I'm not sure if they are full-time or not. And then there is some resource that is employed as consultants effectively. I'm not aware of the fullness of the contractual arrangements, but as highlighted in this report or the next one, Lawrence Yule and Wayne Nicholson have been hired to support the work around simplifying local government. So there aren't many bums on seats, but there is the ability to employ external resource.
And without trying to speak out of turn, obviously just pinch their CE. And Ross has got some ideas around not replacing his role like for like, but potentially utilising the existing council CEs. So yeah, perhaps get him to talk to that one day when we've got a chance to. It's just his thinking, there's nothing. Councillor Taylor.
Yep, 2 different questions, if I may, just in relation to that one. What is the formal reporting that this, other than what we hear through weekly words and things like that, what is the formal reporting that comes back to this council and the regional office in oversight of that budget? How does that work from a governance point of view?
Yeah, so they report to Matariki and Mural Forum, and I know the Mural Forum we ourselves are asking for better reporting. So that will come through to next mayoral forum, and happy to share that when it comes to the council.
The other question was relating to when Reader was wound up, there was an element of funding there that was unspent, and some projects that Reader had been doing that hadn't been realised. And apologies for not giving prior warning of this question, but I've only just thought of it. The Regional Transport Committee wrote a letter to Reader, or to I forget who it was actually addressed to, that requested the keen to progress the proposed East Coast connectivity detailed business case that had previously been approved and was within the Reader work plan. And my question is, what happened to the funding and the work programs of Reader if it's no longer exists, and that the funding that was put to those projects, where's that?
Through your worship, I don't have that level of detail. Sorry.
May I've probably explained when at the time when I saw this letter about the, and and I had discussed it with Doug Tate, former chief executive, about what that meant, and he said, well, it's not wound up yet. Nobody knows what's happening with that money yet. It's still a process, and now we've got a budget of the stuff we withheld going to it, but I haven't actually had a response about what happened to the money that had already gone to it.
Yes.
So I'm confused about.
Yeah, I think we probably need to get you clearer answers to that. My understanding is I'm aware of that request, but know more about that specifically what's happened to it. From my understanding, all the work programs are not happening. There was no more work to carry on. Was the instruction. Where the money's actually sitting, we'll probably have to come back to you on that.
It goes back a little bit to that through that formal reporting and the oversight of the budget. This is all very unclear.
Just thanks, Chair. So this is we seem to be leading the way again. So Napier Hastings still haven't made a decision on their funding.
Through your worship, I have got the date. I believe they're considering this in the next couple of weeks, 17th and the 24th, I think. And sorry, if I may add, your worship, recommendation 5 does make the potential contribution from this table subject to that. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think back to your question, Councillor Taylor. From what I understood, like they're obviously winding up that company, and they had to obviously ensure there were funds there to, for whatever they needed to do that process. So, and that could still be, happening, that process. So, but we will come back to you, Councillor Byrne.
Apart from simplifying local government, what is the work program of the
As Mr. Chamberlain said, so the Cairns Water has been a big part lately, and ongoing cyclone recovery works. I understand they just secured another $400,000 for going towards the Waddle River Bar Corin yesterday. So, yeah, still in that cyclone recovery space as well.
Points 29, 30 and 31 of the paper sort of outline what they're planning to do over the next few months, which is continuation of simplifying local government, developing the regional plan and the priorities, taking the remaining cyclone recovery work, supporting the Bay Leadership Forum, and looking at the Head Start pathway.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Councillor Moynihan.
Just to add on to that, and part of this funding is for simplifying local government reform. And that's been driven by central government to do this. Has any discussions occurred with DIA or ministers regarding financial assistance for councils to implement and prepare for these reforms? I did send an email, which I think you were going to see Minister Watts. Did you ask him, was there any money coming from government, or that's just a complete no?
No,
That comes at cost to us.
not at this stage, but it can be a recurring question at every step. We could submit the Head Start process if we get that far, but say, yeah, how about some help to carry on? Because it's one thing submitting a high level proposal, then there's a lot of work to go.
That's right.
I mean, I guess we already know it through the local water done well process that these things aren't cheap. Councillor Lennon. Councillor Muggeridge.
Just to clarify, this $67,560 is left over of this year's budget, which expires at the end of this month.
Yes.
And then in next year's budget, we've got another 135 lined up to go to it. Does that automatically go to this new organisation?
No. Well, my understanding is it won't, because there's been no formal extension of the regional office past the end of September date, which was when it was initially set up. So there'll need to be a process to agree to extend the office.
So that 135,000, has that been taken into account in our budgeting? Is it?
So two parts. There's 135,000 in the current year's budget, which, as you say, expires at the end of this month. We've paid half of that to Reader when it existed, and now they're requesting the second half. In the following year, we've got another 135,000 to fund what was originally going to be Reader, but now is an undetermined regional organisation of some sort. And obviously, before we pay that out, we will work out what that looks like and who it is. And but there is a provision in the budget, you're quite right, a second tranche.
So just following on from that, if Napier and Hastings is putting in 500,000 each for next year, so that this organisation is going to have a budget of 1.1 million for 4 bums on seats. That's what concerns me. I wonder whether we're getting real value for money, whether we're just paying for people's existence.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's. I mean, the whole reason Reader was stopped because there was that exact conclusion that we weren't getting value for money. So what going forward looks like, I still don't think it's been mapped out. Matariki probably are working on their priorities now. That would sort of form the basis of what the regional office continues with. But for now, it's obviously been reasonably distracted by the simplifying local government process, which we're all, as TAs, we're all treating as a priority.
So just following on, if we agree to that 67,000 finish off this year, which we've got 3 weeks to go, then when we step into the 1st of July, they don't automatically get the 135. It has to come back to this table.
Yeah, not at all. No.
Not at all has to come back.
It would have to come back because we need to formalise an extension to the regional office.
Yeah, I think this is a crossover in his comment to yours.
That's mine.
Yeah, so to add on to that, which I was a bit worried about. So the next term will be could be a new identity. It won't be Reader, of course.
No, what's not?
So it will go then, there'll be different budgets, different everything. So the whole amount could be completely changed. And then it depends if the other two want to contribute anyway. Because if one doesn't contribute or drops, what's going to happen to that difference of funding? Are they going to come back and say they want more?
No, it's pretty unsustainable without the 3 remaining partners involved. I think for now, each council has got it line in the budget, but it doesn't mean that it's going to be passed over or spent yet until there's that adoption of carrying on with it.
Because one, just to add on, because one problem was concern about Hawke's Bay Reader was the accountability of their things. And I did bring up, I think even Councillor Muggeridge's, that was a few years ago when the ex-mayor was here, and we did ask for, was there going to be performance indicators or KPIs attached? So I still think when going forward, we need to definitely see that and what is attached to the new funding. Because that was one area we were concerned about.
Point, Councillor Lennon.
Yeah, I wonder if this paper, probably just some feedback could have been set up for a bit more success with a bit more information around future and what that looks like, but also acknowledging that they are making the plane as they fly it at the moment as well. Can I make a suggestion? Do we need to put number 6 to our motion, or a recommendation that basically next year's funding is dependent that team coming in and talking to council and so that we get a real visibility over what the KPIs are, having a give investment into that, and then sort of what the plans are for the next 3 years really. And I think the part that it's hard to sort of explain, because you almost have to be a part of that regional stuff to really understand how it was add. Because I don't want to see us remove that and then you guys are then left floundering or having to then add that into your already very busy workloads and roles. But I think for people like us around the table, we probably just need to have some visibility and be able to, and we've always said that, Councillor Monahan, we just want to see ourselves in the regional stuff. We want to see ourselves reflected. We want to know what the KPIs are, and we want to know what the benefit is to our community. And I don't think that's hard. It's just, there's been so many changes and so many things that get in the way that we sometimes lose sight of that stuff. So I mean, I'm happy to go with this recommendation. I'm happy to move it, but I think we do need a little bit of a 6 there to say that the next year's funding is dependent on and some clarity on what the KPIs are. Councillor Taylor's better at wordsmithing than me, so I love it.
I read it.
Yeah, you do.
I haven't added KPIs in though. Any future funding approval will be contingent on a formal reporting process and budget oversight.
Yeah, I think you're right, Councillor Lennon. Hopefully it's pretty clear the current sort of work stream is pretty much simplifying local government and things like McCain's or other stuff that pop up as they do. But going forward, I agree, whether it's a physical request around extending the existence of them or financially or funds, I agree. Come back with some a good layout of what does the next 3 years look like.
Just trying to read my writing. Tried not to put shorthand in it.
It's a sword.
It would be contingent.
Just what I do next.
Went over Councillor Muggeridge. Succeeded. That could be the case.
If I may just add, because I think those are entirely fair comments, Councillor Anand, and there is an element of building the plane as we're flying in, and what this decision is about keeping the engine room going at the moment. But there will undoubtedly need to be a different conversation if this office is to transition into something else, which might be bigger, might be smaller, depending on what the priorities of the day will look like. I think Mayor Will alluded to the fact that the mayors have requested some more detailed reporting, and I think that it's a good thing if that reporting can then come to this table, and that will include oversight of budgetary issues. But yeah, the request is for now. Any further request will be part of a conversation that this table will need to have input into.
Okay, we've got, any other questions? So we've got, point 6, that any future funding approval will be contingent on a formal reporting process and budget oversight.
I'm happy to move that.
Councillor Annan move. Councillor Moynihan second. It's the points recommendations 1, 2, 6. Yep.
Yes.
Would you like to speak?
I feel like I've seen enough.
Yeah. It's okay. Sorry, that came out wrong. Councillor Moynihan.
In my book.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else? All those in favour? Against? Carried, thank you.
People outside.
Yes.
Submissions.
Okay, we need to just move to submissions. Just have a quick stop while. Yeah.
Got my pen.
Right, welcome. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome to our visitors, submitters. We're just on to item the waste management minimisation plan submissions. Mr. Honda, do you want to come and open the paper and?
No, I'll just put some. Morning, just a bit of introduction. Today we have 4 submissions who want to be heard, submitters, sorry, who want to be heard. So we'll go through the submitters, and following that, I will provide just a procedural paper on the decision to accept those, accept the submissions. We have Matt Radford online. So
Matt's our first one.
Yes.
Welcome, Matt.
Dr. Matt Radford.
Could I call you up just while we're just while we're waiting for it to get him online? Do you want to come up and
We get this fellow go first.
oh okay.
I've got 5 minutes. Here we go.
Oh sorry, no, we're here. Welcome, Dr. Matt. You're on, the floor's yours.
Kia ora, thanks very much. Sorry, I had the
Okay.
council online meeting going at the same time, so I had two council meetings going at once, which was confusing. But tēnā koutou katoa, thanks very much for letting me present today. And yes, I'm a medical officer health, so I work with Te Whatu Ora, Health New Zealand as well. So, basically looking after the health of Te Mata Maui Hawke's Bay, including Central Hawke's Bay as well. So our mission is sort of looking from a public health perspective, and generally overall support the plan looks good, and like the overall vision of a waste-free Central Hawke's Bay is a great thing to strive for. And we've seen some great progress in the council has made since the last plan, and continue to be good to work through the process for the next plan as well. So I guess get good waste systems, help people keep healthy as well. When services are hard to access or unreliable, expensive, people are more likely to dump or burn things, pest and vermin or bad smells, and a risk to our land, water and air, which all has, overall impacts on our health as well. So, and particularly those, effects aren't always equally felt, those already on lower incomes or people living near problem sites, and those rural communities are equally, more affected as well. When I said in the submissions and also from us was that affordability is really important, because cost shapes behaviour. If something's too expensive or too hard, people are going to get rid of waste and properly burn it or dump it as well. So it's not just about personal responsibility, but it's having those systems set up as well. If you've got lots of green waste, you want to get rid of it, but it's too expensive. Whilst that's the option you want to do, but it can be too hard and end up doing burning or dumping, which it's not the best option. So when services are designed, the cost and convenience, that's really important. And I think it's really important when you think about cost to also think about some of those hidden costs. They might always not appear on the balance sheet, but things like pollution, nuisance, and harms to health and the environment as well. As I said, are not always on the balance sheet, but years or decades down the line can come up and really cost us in the long term as well. I don't, appreciate the councils are really under cost pressures at the moment, like a lot of organisations. So it's really important to think how we can manage within existing resources as well. So sometimes it's just think about how things are framed, making waste minimisation or reduction feel like the norm, and simplifying, process, even things like gamifications and improving habits can helpful. I think of an example with my father-in-law, looks slightly outside of waste, but works for a roading company, and they have a management system in their cars to tell if they're driving properly. As previous companies had, harsh penalties and fines if you didn't do things right. But his new company has things like, if you drive safely, you have a ranking system, and the safest driver is on top, and you'll get rewards. And I can see, for him, just changing the system has really incentivized him to drive more safely and cautiously. So it's the same system, but the way you frame it and deliver it can really have a different impact within your current resources as well. So just something to think about. I think another big opportunity is around organic collection. As we saw, it's a large source of waste as well, and reducing it, reduce methane, reduce smell, and reduced vermin and other sources as well. And it seems like the next sort of cab off the rank in terms of thinking of local solutions to reduce waste as well. Having said that, I think it's really important to stress about thinking about that waste hierarchy as well, thinking as much we can keep up the top as possible as well. So thinking about how can we prevent waste, then reusing, recovering, and only sending it to landfill if there's no other better option as well. Because councils, you might always be able to influence those sort of top levels as well. It's the basic point still stands as well. The cheapest and easiest option for waste is not to produce that waste in the first place. Access is really important, especially for our rural communities as well. So, if safe disposal recycling is hard or too expensive, people are less likely to do it. So again, making those right options easiest as possible for people as well. And illegal dumping can create real health risks around sort of hazardous materials and, asbestos or other substances as well, and injuries to people cleaning them up as well, and then pests. And whilst enforcement is part of this, it's really not the whole picture. It's thinking about how can we make it practical and affordable so people aren't dumping in the first place as well. Obviously also, support working closely with mana whenua community groups and neighbourhood councils as well. Often there's lots of those local solutions as well. We've seen the many initiatives in the Central Hawke's Bay as well. But it's important having sustainable funding so they continue long term as well, and thinking how can we scale up some of those solutions from a sort of a small time to have it much more scalable across the whole community as well. Finally, education is important, but information itself is not enough. People already know often what to do with their waste, and they want to do the right thing. It's just really challenging as well. So education works best when there's systems in place to make that behaviour, once again, making that easy option the best one. So in closing, we support the overall direction of the plan. I guess our public health message is simple and trying to keep as high up that waste hierarchy as we can, trying to prevent waste. and thinking about how the waste also impacts health, making it fair and having long-term plans as well. So I think the plan gives a strong focus on affordability, thinking about options for organics and easy access. Hopefully we can have some good long-term planning and can make a real difference to Central Hawke's Bay. It's open for any questions.
Thank you, Matt. We've got time for one question. No questions? Okay, thanks for your time, Matt.
Thanks.
Right, Zach and Tim, welcome.
Too much pressure for me.
Good morning, my name is Jordan. I work with Zach at Te Timo Trust. We're based at the Kainga on Pukeoti Lane. Today we're just talking about a green waste hub based around Te Hoki. As we know, currently there's about 40%, give or take, of the green waste is going into landfill. There's no local solution. Closest one is Biorich out in Napier, which is 40-50 minutes from here, up to 2 hours away for some people further up. They're almost at capacity as well after speaking with them, so they can't take much more. What we're proposing is a green waste hub based here, simple, clean, and to produce things like fertilizer and mulch back into the community.
Well, good fun. I'm going to be quick here, Brent. I won't be too long. But in all fact, Whānau, one of my biggest thoughts around this is how do we get rid of this green waste and how do we operate at a level where we can use it somewhere else? Like sell it back to you fellas. Well, it's an opportunity for us to move quickly on. I work in mental health, so that's my main job. But I do other things too, build a papakainga and that sort of stuff. But if we can make community a place where people feel comfortable about what we're doing, I think we can get away with what we do. I've always been a believer, I've been strong in my Māori world, but not only being strong in that Māori world, but being really active in the rest of the world that I live in. And at any time, if you ever come to the papakainga, you're most welcome to visit us. And I just hope that you give it a thought, that we can be business partners, the council and ourselves. Kia ora.
Well, that's it. Yeah.
Bye.
Oh, hang on. Questions. Maybe.
Have you guys got a site? You've got
a site.
Yep.
Yeah, several. We've got potentially up to, I think, 20 something odd acres that we'll utilise straight off the bat. It's close to the highway and very accessible for trucks already. We're also working in partnership with the Brown Rigs as well. So there's a direct link there. So I think we could come to capacity quite quickly for a small scale. We'd love to make it a larger scale, but I think we start small, start building up.
Would you consider organic collection as well at gate? Right.
Yes, so it will also depend on how you guys would like to collect organic waste. We spoke with the Eco Gas up in Reparoa, and in Auckland they have their organic collection for each house. I'm not sure if that's something that's being implemented here. I know that was a thought with the previous government that all councils were going to do something like that. But yes, we'd be open to that as well. And sorry, one other note, we're looking to minimize the amount of diesel used. So we'll try and operate with electric based equipment. Given with the Iran war where diesel's gone up, and also nitrate and fertilizer, we import a lot of that. So it's a great opportunity for us to localize it and reduce dependency.
Don't give Brent too many eyes.
Councillor Taylor.
You're confident of showing resilience by breaks even without any commercial partnerships, but both scenarios look at using grant funding for that the capital expenditure set up. Have you started any of that process? Have you been successful, or what's the feedback been from people about those?
It's still ongoing. We're working with MFE and also NPA. There's just a slow process with.
It's tough times, certainly. Tough times for everybody.
Well,
Yeah.
So we're working through it. And I'm hoping, you know, with the council's support, it might get us through. Now you got Ross here, well, I'm all hopeful. Anyway, kia ora.
Kia ora.
Questions?
No, we're out of time. Thanks, guys.
Kia ora.
Oh, we next.
Oh, Tony's next on our list.
Yeah. Bye.
Ko tama te mana o te whenua, ko tama te ahi kā tuku iho, a tihei mauri ora. Tēnā koutou. My name's Tony Renata. I am speaking on behalf of the HA Trust. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to our submission on the draft waste minimisation plan. I speak not only from reading the plan, but also from working operationally within the waste system every day and seeing the realities firsthand across our communities. One of the key things I wanted to bring forward is this. Collection is not the same thing as minimisation. We have systems that are very good at collecting and moving waste, but genuine minimisation starts before the rubber truck arrives. That is where I believe the next part of the conversation needs to go. From what I see across rural communities and around the marae, many people already minimise waste naturally through practical everyday behaviour. Food scraps go to pigs, animals, or organic matter gets composted, cardboard and timber gets reused or burnt, items are repaired, shared and repurposed. These systems may be informal, but they are still genuine forms of waste minimisation. Sometimes policy can miss those realities because one model does not fit every community. Rural communities operate different from urban environments. So rather than focusing on compliance and collection systems, I believe there is an opportunity for council to engage more directly with communities and ask simple questions. For example, what are people already doing well? What barriers exist? What practical support would generally help? That could include things like small-scale composting, food scrap initiatives, partnerships with local fertilisers or compost organisations, repair and reuse initiatives, or community-led education through practical action. For me, the important thing is that the solution or solutions remain practical, grounded and connected to real community behaviour. Another point raised in our submission is the whakaaro of relationship and responsibility. Waste management is not only a technical issue, it also reflects our relationship with whenua and with each other. Our submission refers to the whakaaro of mana ki te whenua, meaning active responsibility and care for the whenua through practical action. I believe the shift in thinking is important. We generally want long-term minimisation outcomes rather than simply improving disposal systems. In closing, our submission is intended to be constructive. We support practical waste minimisation, community-led solutions, and stronger engagement with rural communities and marae realities. Before I finish, I would also like to acknowledge the waste management team, particularly Rob Hon, for his leadership, oversight, and support of the recent major infrastructural improvements at both the Porongaho and Waipukurau transfer stations. From my personal perspective, these improvements have moved us into a space where we are now healthier, safer, and a more efficient working asset, which I believe is a direct benefit to the communities of Tamatea. That progress would not have been possible without the direction and tautoko of the councillors. E te ti, e te tā, tino mihi nui ki a koe, ki a koe hoki, Rob, ki a koutou katoa. Pāti.
Thanks, Tony. We've got time for one question. Tony? Thank you for that feedback. All right, and our last submitter, is it just Rhea or is Andrea coming up as well? Welcome to our new Hawke's Bay President, Better Ed Funds President, Andrea Yule. Welcome, Rhea.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting us to present our submission today. Nice to see some familiar faces as well as some new ones around the table. My name is Rhea. I am a regional policy advisor for Federated Farmers. This is my 18th year with Feds. I'm also a bull farmer in the Hastings district. And this is our new president, Anthea Yule for Hawke's Bay.
Yeah, so I got a job that Will had many years ago. I've been in it about 5 minutes, so I've got a lot to learn. But she can be farmer from Otamari, and I'm here to support Rhea, who's going to take you through this.
So you'll see in our submission, we had our main interests were in farm plastic recovery, rating for waste management, illegal dumping, and biosecurity things. So I'd like to just talk today about farm plastics and a little bit about the biosecurity waste. So Federated Farmers supported the proposed regulations for a national scheme for the recycling of agrochemical containers and farm plastics at the end of their useful life, which was proposed in 2025. Federated Farmers has a trustee on the not-for-profit AgRecovery Charitable Foundation and farm recycling. It's really important to us. These national regulations were aimed at product stewardship for farm plastic producers and importers, so that all companies were to share the responsibility and the cost of end-of-life plastics. Under these national regulations, farmers would be able to either drop off their agrochemical containers and farm plastics like small feed bags, balage wrap and silage sheets at no charge to one of the collection sites, or have the products picked up from their premises if they meet particular criteria around remoteness and product weight. A key feature of our support was that the proposal did not regulate the end user, the farmers. Instead, the aim was to offer farmers a free-to-use and convenient take-back service, which will reduce burning or burying on farm and otherwise divert waste away from landfill. In this, we agreed that such a national scheme will need a stewardship fee in order for cost recovery, and this should ensure the national scheme continues to have a low cost impact on farmers. So we note that there was an article published in the Farmers Weekly on the 25th of May, where the commercial manager of plastic recycler Plasback suggested that council bylaws could be a path to compulsory plastic recycling. But I would like to tell you that we disagree with him for reasons that the RMA or its replacement does not require recycling as a function of councils. And we also think that councils have so many other functions already that this would be better addressed nationally. We therefore request that the Central Hawke's Bay District Council does not consider rules or a bylaw that regulates the end user of farm plastics. And we think that the best thing the council can do instead is education for end users and support for organisations like AgRecovery. So my last topic will be biosecurity waste. And we're really interested in how the council intends to manage biosecurity waste in Central Hawke's Bay. So we had kiwi fruit PSA waste was mostly dealt with on site through burning or burial. M. bovis was mainly dealt with through the meat processing plants, and milk through on-farm effluent systems. And the bird flu outbreak in Otago last year because that was contained to only one property that went to an appropriate landfill, that waste. So we're really interested in how biosecurity incursions like foot and mouth be managed in Central Hawke's Bay. And this, yeah, we're just really interested in this because it's a, you know, it's a big deal to us. So one aspect we have become increasingly concerned about is the lag time between the actual emergency happening, such as a weather event or a biosecurity incursion, and orders in council through the government overriding local RMA regulations. So we saw this, and I talked about it in the submission, was the lag between Cyclone Gabrielle victims wanting to burn flood debris on their property and the lifting of the burning plastics prohibition in an order of council 6 weeks later. So there was quite a lag there. We have a perception that during an emergency, these kind of regulations are lifted, but they are only lifted for the state, like councils, and they're not really lifted for private citizens. So that's a big concern for us. And we ask that emergency measures need to be baked into local government to allow immediate management. So I think my time is up, and I'll thank you, the council, for listening, and we are available for any questions.
Thanks, guys. I wonder what the plastic wrap's going to be worth this year to the contractors to source. And
Yes, yeah. So Plasback is a commercial for-profit entity as opposed to Ag Recovery, which is a charitable trust. And we think that's why there's a difference in uptake. I think in my submission, I spoke about the costs of Plasback, which is a real issue. It cost about $925 plus GIST for a bin, and then $95 for a 3-pack of liners, which I suspect is why we saw the article requesting council compulsion the other week. So it is an issue, but one other thing I've observed is that bailage is becoming more and more popular. And one of the reasons, I think, is because the regional council actually regulates silage pits. So, and for water quality purposes. So, and the regional council intending to address a water quality issue by regulating silage pits has created another problem where we now have more bailage rat to deal with at the other end. So that is an example of a regulatory inverse outcome there. Yeah.
okay, that's all we've really got time for.
Okay.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm available for other questions online if you desire.
Thanks, Rhea.
Thank you.
You just made me think about it. Yeah, it's big, man. Like, phew, go back to my height. Yeah.
Yeah, we're also just going to talk to the submissions.
Good morning, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, councillors, advisors. Today I've just made the procedural paper that I'm presenting, which is effectively to accept the submissions through the official submissions through the public consultation for our draft waste management and minimization plan. We will note the key issues raised through the consultations, through the submissions, and we would look at adjusting our WMP in light of the submissions and produce a final draft. This will coincide with us coming back to the Planning and Investment Committee for a paper that will deliberate and hopefully adopt the updated WMP on the 18th of June 2028. Consider the paper read and happy to answer any questions.
Councillor Taylor.
I just have one with regards to the Timu Trust, Zach and Jordan. They had a point in there specifically requesting that CHPDC provide a formal letter of support with regards to their funding applications. Will that come in as part of the your review of the submissions and come into that paper as something we might look at then? Any idea of the timeframe? Does that allow for that sort of process? Sorry, does coming back to us at the Planning and Investment Committee allow for that point in the submission to be addressed?
Through you, Mayor, that you as a council can direct me or direct the CL to provide that letter of support. It does not require any connection with this WMP approval.
Any other questions? No, I'm happy to move that we receive those submissions. Second, Councillor Hannon, second. All those in favour? Yes, carried, thank you.
Can we address the actions from the submissions? Everyone for
We'll do that at the planning.
planning and investment.
Right, where we are, because we're simplifying simplifying local government memorandum of understanding. Dylan, are you?
Thank you, Your Worship, and good afternoon, everyone. Yes, I'm going to take the report as read, but I think it is worthwhile just stepping through the key points that it contains at a high level. What this report is asking council to do is agree to participate in a regional process to explore the government's simplifying local government Head Start pathway, and also to endorse a memorandum of understanding with other Hawke's Bay councils as the preferred option for moving this work forward. Councillors, you'll be aware that the government has now confirmed its policy settings for simplified local government, or certainly for the first part of it. The government moved away from an earlier proposal to have combined territory boards, and instead has introduced two pathways, which is a Head Start pathways for councils that want to explore forming new unitary authorities, and a compulsory backstop approach for those councils that choose not to do so. The immediate implication for us as a council is that there's now a relatively short time frame to decide whether we want to explore that Head Start pathway or not, with outline proposals due by the 9th of August, which I think is about 10 weeks' time. In terms of the decision sought today, it's a process decision. We're not seeking a substantive decision on reorganisation. And council has not been asked to support the unitary authority model or the change or final proposal to government today. We are simply seeking agreement to be at the table to work regionally and to keep options open while further analysis is undertaken. So the recommended approach is to enter into an MOU to explore the Head Start pathway, which would provide a clear framework for how the 5 Hawke's Bay councils can work together over the next few weeks through this exploration phase. Importantly, the MOU preserves each council's autonomy. Any later decision about whether to support or submit an outline proposal still comes back to each council individually. In terms of our recommended option, we're recommending this because it keeps Central Hawke's Bay actively involved in shaping the regional response to these proposals, rather than having decisions or options developed around us. It allows us to influence the evidence base, the options development, and the assessment of impacts for our community. It also gives us the best chance to protect Central Hawke's Bay's interest while the region works through what is a very compressed timeframe from delivered by the government. I do want to emphasise again that entering this MOU does not commit council to submitting an outline proposal to government. It doesn't lock council into any preferred structural option, and it doesn't remove our ability to make future decisions based on better information, further analysis, further engagement with community. And as I said before, any formal decision to submit such an outline proposal, if that was the pathway we chose to go down to, would need to come back to council in August. In terms of issues and risks that we need to flag, the main challenge is really the compressed timeframe. There's obviously limited time between now and August to explore options properly, to test evidence, to engage with community and consider all of those implications. And there's also a risk that the public could interpret today that the decision today is supporting the reorganisation. But again, I want to stress that that is not the decision we're seeking today. The report notes the importance of meaningful engagement with community and with mana whenua. That includes recognising existing relationships and the government's expectation that they've laid out in their policy proposals around engagement with post-settlement governance entities in particular. You will be aware, based on the couple of workshops that we've had, that the government has not required public consultation on this Head Start pathway. But it is our view, our firm view, that any final proposal would need to be subject to community consultation as per the requirements under the Local Government Act 2002. So yeah, we very much believe that engagement and consultation with community is very much alive and will need to be part of the next few weeks if this is the pathway we choose to go down. So in summary, the recommendation is that council does endorse the exploration of this Head Start and enter the MOU with the other councils. That gives us a structured way to work with our neighbours in Hawke's Bay, and it keeps us involved in shaping what might be options for a potential proposal to outline as part of a Head Start process proposal in August. With that, I'm happy to take precedent. Before I do that, I noticed a small typo in my report. In the very first resolution, it talks about receiving the report titled Simplifying Local Government Head Start Process, dated 27 May 2026. That's when I wrote the report. It should be today's date, 4th of June. Just wanted to note that.
Very well introduced paper. Thanks, Mr. Mugridge. Councillor Moynihan.
Yes, a little bit confused on this one. When reading through the recommendation, it appears it's saying two things to me. One, this council should sign the MOU and participate in the Head Start process. And then two, council is not committing to submit a proposal or support a unitary authority. So my question is, if we are not committing to a proposal, what is the purpose and value of signing this MOU?
So through your worship, what the MOU provides is a structure and a framework to explore those options that could lead into a proposal that's submitted as part of the Head Start process. So the first gateway is to decide whether we want to explore the options, which will then lead to further council decisions and workshopping what different options might look like, which would eventually, if council chooses to go down that path, lead into a proposal that will be submitted on the 9th of August. So exploration of the process first, and options, but there will be further decisions required if council chooses to continue down that pathway.
And to explore anything needs partnering councils to be part of that. Otherwise, yeah, you're on your own. Councillor Byrne.
Absolutely agree that we need to be sitting at the table with our regional partners. What concerns me is that we've got a workshop and a council meeting. We've got nothing scheduled in July, so that concerns me. One thing is, when does our council actually sit? Because there's obviously mural forums and there's CE meetings and officer meetings and all that's scheduled, but when do we get to feed in apart from a workshop? But the other thing is, with this 10 weeks, when have we actually got time? We can come up with a scenario, but when have we got time to actually model savings, which is what people will be looking for if it's going to work. They want to see it's going to cost save them, not cost them money, save them money. And how are we going to present that? I mean, how are we going to find that out? When we know that Price Waterhouse mucked up the 3 waters and they had months to come up with models.
Through your worship, I'll take both questions separately. So on the first one, we are rejigging the agenda of council meetings and workshops to fit essentially the timeframe that's provided in here. So there will be a further workshop ahead of the next decision, which will be part of an extraordinary council meeting later in July, which will be added essentially to the agenda. In terms of the second question, I completely hear the sentiment. The guidance that we've received from government, which has been actually supplemented by a document that was provided by DA Light on Friday, that they, in terms of the level of detail to be provided in these proposals, they aren't looking for any detailed type of modelling. I think it specifically says that we aren't requesting councils to provide new information, new modelling to inform what this first stage would be, a proposal. That would need to come if that's the pathway that council chose to take after August, and that sort of in-between period between August and March next year, which is where Cabinet decide on the full formal proposal. So we would need to undertake additional work potentially in that period.
Doesn't that seem like a waste of time if we're putting a proposal ahead that we don't actually know whether it's going to be a savings? Like, it seems like we're putting the cart before the horse, or whatever the proper metaphor is. Anyway, thank you.
Flying the plane while we're
But let's make sure it's at the top of any of our kind of papers on this, that it's a changing factor that's needed for this council and this community. So Taylor.
My question relates to the boundaries, and everything could change as a result of this reform. Does this MOU preclude future involvement with Tararoa or Tairāwhiti, as has been suggested, I think, by Tararoa and Labour? Someone in Labour has mentioned going even bigger and including Tairāwhiti. How does this affect any future talks in that regard?
Through your worship, this MOU doesn't preclude any additional conversations. What this does is essentially formalise a framework to work these options with our regional colleagues, which we've been working with for some time on this issue, but also various other issues. But no, it wouldn't preclude any conversation, looking at boundaries, for example, north, south, east. East will be tricky, but west, it was.
What? I just said east might be a bit tricky. Oh. Good voting. These two.
Questions?
Sorry.
You got another one?
Yeah, I do. Because, this is potentially the biggest reform that has hit local government since 1989. And when you look back at the history, we had commissioners back then. We had a commission look at proposed amalgamation in 2015. And now us as experts have got 10 weeks to come up with a proposal. And I know that it's not set in concrete, but our community don't even have an opportunity to feed in at the moment, apart from maybe a potential survey. How are we going to get our community voice? Because we all stood in, and this is probably more of a question for the table, we all stood in October saying, we probably all had a feeling about amalgamation and where we stood on it, but I think we all agreed that it was community voice that needed to make the decision. And the government seemed to have forgotten we're a democracy. So where does our community fit into this? Which is probably a question that nobody can answer.
No.
The speed.
Through your worship, I don't know if I'm going to be able to fully answer that question. On the point around community voice, as part of the consultation process that the government undertook with simplifying local government, one of the things that came out the most strongly was the need to maintain that local democracy and local voice, and that has been reflected in the proposals here, which is so local voice is one of the key criteria that will be used to assess any sort of proposal. We do, and we will over the next 10 weeks have the opportunity to undertake things like surveys. We want to get through a decision today in terms of what sort of direction we take that, but we have some draft questions that we have got ready. One of them is very much focused on that local decision making and how do we continue to maintain local voice in any future reorganised model. One of the interesting things that is on the DIA website is that for this period of time, the government is looking to local mayors and local councillors to make these decisions on behalf of their community, and they have stressed that that sort of formal consultation is not a requirement.
But what concerns me is that we do that, we get the blame, which is what happened with, we've given 5 options for local water done well. And yeah, and then we had to make a decision out of the 3, and then we're blamed for making, you know, it's just a central government forcing us. Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Muggeridge.
I'll move the recommendation.
Councillor Choke, second. Would you like to speak?
Yeah, I'll just say that I think we have to do this, and the concern about our community and things, I think we can address that further down the track. I think all this is doing is getting government to take their hands off us from the 9th of August for the next 2 years, and then we can, over those 2 years, we work out exactly how we're going to, you know, what sort of arrangement we're going to come to with the other councils, and at that stage we start talking to our community and finding out what they want. But you know, I think this is just getting us across that line, and then because if we don't, we've got no say.
Councillor Choke.
Yeah, it's very much the same opinion as Muggy. After watching the Hastings meeting, they did this yesterday. What might be the day before. They were very, I don't know how to put it. Yeah, but they were all on board with it as well, which was good to hear. But we need to be at that table. There's no point in us being on the outskirts. So we definitely have to be there.
I think the key to this today is we're not committing to anything other than showing some unity around the region of let's work together to come up with what's best for the region, and I think that will be reflected well to our community, as opposed to, you know, trying to do this on our own and then getting something forced on us from Wellington. So it's simply that at this stage. It's nothing to be fearful of, but yeah, we obviously need to get to work with 8 to 9 weeks left, and it's totally up to us to engage with our community in that time, and it will be ongoing, no doubt, after the deadline as well. Councillor Byrne.
And don't get me wrong, I want to sit at the table with our regional partners. It just, I reflect on when we had 3 waters in front of us, and you know, a lot of councils, a lot of elected members stood up and opposed 3 waters, and yeah, there was a huge outcry, and I'm disappointed that local government is not standing up and telling central government that actually we are the best designers of our future. And I know we are trying to design it, but we've got a very short time frame. Yeah, I just think we are strong, and we should be telling them as a collective local government that we will design our future, but don't give us a 3-month time frame to do it, or 10 weeks to do it. And so yeah, that's just my position.
Yeah. Okay, all those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. Hauriri water supply, is that what we're up to? Marshall and Mr. Kimber.
Good afternoon, councillors, Mayor and Deputy Mayor. So today we're here to talk to you about the proposed new water supply, ultimately to seek council's direction on the future of the supply. Council is the registered drinking water supplier for this. We do have, because of that, we have legal obligations under the Water Services Act to ensure that the supply meets the relevant, ultimately compliance standards, but in turn is safe for consumption of the users. The current supply quite clearly does not meet those standards. This puts us, or gives us a number of risks, ultimately and importantly public health risk, but also the risk of regulatory action and of course some liability for council officers. Currently, the supply services the campground, which has about 29 sites and an unknown number of other connections. The supply is a historic farm source supply, and as mentioned, it's basically has no treatment and is therefore non-compliant. In the interim, and as we talked to you previously in workshop, officers have just started to tanker in compliant water from one of our other sources from the Waipokoro supply as a short-term mitigation measure, but this is not a sustainable long-term option. We know that the campground is a valued community facility. It's important to the users, but of course also the wider community that it fundamentally serves as a bit of a hub for. We also note that this decision could have potential impacts on the campground's viability. And due to that, you'll see that we've noted there's a need for some robust consultation as we work through any processes. If we were not to take any action, we obviously have a continued non-compliance. That's likely to result in increased regulatory pressure and actually potentially forced direction from the regulator. And of course, in the interim, we do still hold some risk associated with public health and legal liabilities associated with that. In previous workshops and in the paper, you'll see that we've listed 3 potential options, generally speaking being upgrade the supply to be compliant, so pretty significant capital investment as well as ongoing operational cost. To continue tankering water, noting this is the current interim approach. However, we do not, as officers, see that as viable long term due to both cost and operational complexities. And option 3, which is our recommended option, to cease or transfer the supply. This option essentially aligns with all the regulatory expectations as the lowest cost, lowest risk. We do have to work through some more consultation with the campground directors primarily as to whether it is cease or transfer. The recommendations speak to that and speak to our recommended approach being option 3. And note that we continue tankering in the meantime while we prepare to undertake formal consultation and follow all the required processes to do that. Just otherwise we'll take the report as read, but key closing messages, primarily this is a compliance and a risk issue. I mean, we currently have a lot of risk exposure. The current model is not sustainable and therefore we need to find the right balance in our future approach.
Great, thank you. Any questions? Thanks, Lennon.
Thank you so much for the transparency over this issue. I think we feel very well informed, which has been awesome. My question is option 3 reduces the possibility of you going to jail, Mr. McLeod. Obviously, that's most important. But the second important to be somebody I am, because we don't want that absolutely. And then the other thing is the third of importance is the people that are out there that this will actually individually affect. What do they want out of these recommendations? Have we asked them if they're happy with option 3?
So through you, Your Worship, so we've been engaging with the campground directors regularly. They are not in a position yet to make a decision on what they would like to do. Through the correspondence we've had with them, I think they, without speaking for them, I think that they agree that there isn't many options available, and they're currently just assessing what options they have in terms of whether they would like to take over that responsibility.
And I think through you, there'll be potentially follow-on conversations happens on from there. Transfer of responsibility, or whether there's a ceasing of supply and the ground can operate more on freedom basis where people make their own arrangements. Those are the sorts of things, depending on where you head down decision making, the other conversations, which doesn't necessarily mean camping.
So that was probably my question, is that if we go for the option of ceasing the supply, can we keep the options open of this freedom camping side of things? The only issue I have there is a lot of those caravans aren't mobile, so I don't know how freedom camping works with that situation.
Through you, Worship, I might just probably not, Robert's probably the right person to answer that question, but I think I just wanted to reiterate that the steps that we've asked today, there's a number of steps that have to be undertaken before we get anywhere near what the campground looks like in the future. Step one today is to confirm direction so that we can go away and prepare the appropriate materials, seek the right advice, and then there's consultation, potential referendum. All of that follows the campground directors deciding if they would like to transfer or not, if it's transfer or cease. So there's a number of steps that we get to before we start to consider the future of the campground and what it looks like.
Through you, Your Worship, I think Ben's largely said what I was going to say. I think the council recommendations speak to that further consultation, and there's further processes still to occur.
I can just add to you, Your Worship, just it is in the report, just around those unknown connections as well. It's not just about the campground. We've got a number of connected properties, so we'd have to make sure that we're consulting broadly.
Councillor Lawrence.
Based on the information and the reporting that's still to come back to us, I'm happy to move option 3.
I'll second it.
Okay, and Deputy Mayor second.
Sorry, just to clarify, you're moving 1, 2, 3 and 4 on. Thank you.
Yeah. Just believe
2, 1, 3.
Yeah, the process that is to be followed, I think, is really clear. There's some clear reporting to be coming back to us for further decision making, and
I'd just say, it's very unfortunate for the community out there that have probably, I think Councillor Annan would agree, there's probably 4 or 5 generations that have used that campground. So we're just going to need to consult very carefully on the next steps.
Okay, all those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried, thank you. Now, we're just going to quickly do before lunch endorsement of MOU with Moana Environmental and Educational Charitable Trust. That's 335.
So this report is seeking endorsement of the MOU with Moana Environmental and Educational Charitable Trust. It sets out a shared intent to work together to protect and enhance the Ōpoto Estuary Reserve and support the Te Angiangi Visitor Experience Project. The Visitor Experience Projects includes cultural storytelling, elements, signage and native plantings. The MOU is non-binding. It's to clarify roles and signals council support. Happy to take any questions.
Just to make it clear, Chair, that I did declare a conflict of interest before you arrived back. But I'm happy to take questions as a trustee if there are any.
You've run been out there. That spot.
Years ago.
I haven't got a question as such, but just are we aware, are you aware? Are we aware that they received a community activation fund to pay for the locales project plan out there? So we're already part of the process out there. That wasn't a question. Oh, yeah, are you aware?
My only question is, what does this do for them? Does this strengthen things for funding applications or those sorts of things? So it's really putting it support for the groups and the volunteers out there.
Just giving them option to.
Yeah. Okay,
We have a mover, councillor Ennan. Seconder, councillor Evans. All those in favour? Carried.
Acknowledgement of that fund would be nice somewhere though. Money they got, some acknowledgement.
Yep. So we've, next step is to move into public excluded, so I'll move that we do that. So seconder. Councillor Taylor, all those in favour?
Aye.
That's carried, so that's us. PE.